Topsy, Chihuahua. Oh, oh no, oh no, oh, hey. Sí, sabes que ya llevo un rato mirándote. Tengo que bailar contigo hoy. Chihuahua. Vi que tu mirada ya estaba llamándome. Muéstrame el camino que yo voy. Oh, tú eres el imán y yo soy el metal. Me voy acercando y voy armando el plan. Solo con pensarlo se acelera el pulso. Oh yeah, ya me está gustando más de lo normal. Todos mis sentidos van pidiendo más. Esto hay que tomarlo sin ningún apuro. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo.
Si te pido un beso, pensándolo. No sé qué estás pensándolo. Llevo tiempo intentándolo. A mí te están mirándolo. Sabes que tu corazón conmigo te hace bam bam. Sabes que esa beba está buscando y bam bam. Me pruebas de mi boca para ver cómo te sabe. Quiero ver cuánto amor a ti te cabe. Yo no tengo prisa, yo me quiero dar el viaje. Empecemos lento, después salvaje. Pasito a pasito, suavecito. Nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito. Cuando tú me besas, con esa destreza, yo te doy malicia con delicadeza. Pasito a pasito, suavecito. Nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito. Y es que esa belleza es un rompecabezas. Pero para montarlo aquí tengo la pieza. Oye,
despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo. Despacito, quiero desnudarte a veces despacito. A las paredes de tu laberinto. Hacer de tu cuerpo tus manuscritos. Sube, sube. Quiero que bailar tu pelo, quiero ser un ritmo. Que le enseñes a mi boca los lugares favoritos.
favorito, baby.
Dejo de pasar tus olas de peligro. Hasta provocar tus gritos. Que olvides tu apellido. Despacito, vamos a hacerlo en una playa en Puerto Rico. Hasta que las olas griten ay bendito. Para que mi sello se quede contigo.
Pasito a pasito, suavecito, nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito.
Enseñas a mi boca los lugares favoritos.
Favorito, suavecito, nos vamos pegando poquito a poquito.
Tus gritos. Que olvides tu apellido.
Dear friends, welcome to the third day of our forum and to the second part of Science Stand-Up Battle. We enjoyed the first part of it yesterday and today it's time to continue. Today we'll have 7 videos to watch. Just a reminder of what it's all about. The aim of the Science Stand-Up Battle is to speak about your current research in a fun and simple manner. It should be only based on the speaker's personal research. The winner is determined by viewers, by you, forum participants, and you can vote using the Media Science Stand Up tab on our website. You'll be able to vote today in 4 hours from now, so that is starting at 6 p.m. Moscow time. That is noon Brasilia time, 8:30 p.m. New Delhi time, 11 p.m. Beijing time, and 5 p.m. Pretoria time. Make sure you support the speaker you like. Without any further hesitation, let's watch the first video, and it is from Brazil, from Dagon Manuel Ribeiro.
Hello everyone, my name is Dagon Ribeiro. I'm PhD in biotechnology and biodiversity. I'm from Brazil, and no, I'm not coming to just talk about football or samba. Maybe about caipirinha, but you understand. I came to talk about biotechnology and the biotechnology that I learned and I want to explain to the world. One thing that's kind of mystery thing. Sometimes when I was studying, my grandmother doesn't know what's biotechnology, so I think, this old people doesn't know. After I discovered that my mother doesn't know. Right now, I'm a graduate in biotechnology and I have a PhD in biotechnology, and I know that even my friends doesn't know what's biotechnology. So we have a big problem. Oh, I have a big problem because I have information that no one knows what's there. So because this, I come here to explain what is biotechnology. For me, it's a big problem that I think every day how I can explain what is biotechnology in the world. Maybe sometime in the school, the people will learn and they understand the big responsibility that this science have today right now. So this is my history. I have a graduation in biotechnology, I PhD in biotechnology, and I know that I passed all my life explaining what is biotechnology for all people. Sometimes I'm in the bar with my friends, say, what you do? I'm a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneurship, I'm a doctor in medicine. And what you are? Oh, I'm a biotechnologist, and have the science in the table and no one know how comment, and this is my life. I already know that I will front all my life about that. We can define biotechnology in every part of organism, life organism, or part of them to do a product or service. So if you look around, you have a lot of biotechnology. We can have a lot of example of could be biotechnology. But one thing that I love to say that biotechnology is kind of more than magic. So you can take sugar and with using microorganism yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, you can convert in cachaça. Sugar in cachaça. This is biotechnology, or you can say magic too. About the biotechnology product, we have a list of products that everyone knows. We can say the very expected vaccine for COVID-19 is a biotechnology product. Have biotechnologists doing this kind of work. We have the transgenic plants that increase a lot of the production in the world. We can have a lot of countless medicine that using biotechnology process, and even the DNA test, who your father. So in the Star Wars, when Darth Vader say, "Luke, I'm your father," Luke could be say, so let's do a DNA test. It's a biotechnology process. We could keep in here talking about biotechnology, but my mission here is just to be like a piece of things. You see that is one thing that everywhere around you, and sometimes we don't know. And I want to say it's a pleasure to be here. Like for me, BRICS is a really group that can make a big change in the world, because this I'm with the world inside me. So I'm from Brazil, the BRICS has South Africa. Right now I'm living in Mozambique. So we have India, Russia, and China. Almost half of the planet live in these countries. Because I understand that this kind of knowledge of biotechnology and what I do, that's low cost biotechnology that everyone can understand and can practice and can prove. This for me is the future of the world. We have all the things in our hands. And when I say that our thing in our hands, that I'm saying about the microbiology. And one thing that every everything everywhere is microorganism. And with microorganism is a perfect tools to change the world. To end this conversation, I want to say a history about our planet and how we can save the planet. We start a long time ago when we became back again, all the things together is Pangea time. So every life doesn't exist yet. The molecules is working and something is happening in the sea. Because the sun and the water and the molecules that already exist, we start with algae, microalgae, and this is what the world starts. We are here because that. We are keeping here because of that. And we go to the future if you use that. You say about microorganism, you say bacteria, yeast, fungi, but the special microorganism is microalgae, and this is producing oxygen. I don't know if you can feel free oxygen, like pure oxygen. That's maintain all the words work. After 10 years studying biotechnology, today I decided to become other thing because no one knows biotechnology. I will keep talk about technology, but right now I'm an entrepreneur. It's much elegant, and everyone knows entrepreneur. And what I do in my entrepreneur, biotechnology, and with microalgae. This microalgae could be a solution because we have a lot of kinds of problems in the world. One problem in agriculture is that almost all agriculture in the world is based in chemical inputs, and we want to change this to biological input. One more time, it's a pleasure to be here. For me, I really love the work. And for me, I'm from Brazil. I already passed in South Africa and in Russia, and I'm waiting the invite to visit China and India. In our country, we have microbiology, we have biotechnology, we can develop products together, and we don't lose this chance, don't lose this opportunity, because we know the future is not chemical future. It's not like science future with like robots and everything. The future is green, and is not more green than microalgae. Thank you very much.
Yes, what can be greener than that? Thank you very much, Dagon. And our next video is from South Africa, from Hercules Combrink.
Hi, my name is Artifical. I'm from South Africa. I'm a PhD candidate and deeply passionate about artificial intelligence and its application in normal day-to-day life. Artificial intelligence and machine learning and these things might seem like new concepts, and all of these buzzwords are flying around. But in reality, they've been with us for quite a long time. In fact, if you have a cell phone and you Google anything, an internet recommender system is used to filter through a lot of information, use its learning about what you have clicked and liked in the past, and makes a decision that is completely artificial, that couldn't be done without the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence. My research specifically focuses on artificial intelligence in the education setting, but this work can be applied to other sectors such as healthcare, economics, and finance. So what do I mean when I say artificial intelligence? Well, artificial intelligence is a mathematical and computational way that uses mathematics and computers and processes in order to mimic human-like behavior. Let me give you an example. Let's take the example of Facebook. If you go onto Facebook sometimes, a pop-up comes up and recommends a new friend to you. You might not know this person from a bar of soap, but this particular person might have similar interests to you, like this, you share the same movies or share the same music interests. And thus this could be a potential match in terms of your likeness and that person's likeness. Now, it's not like Facebook is trying to matchmake everyone and create new pathways for relationships. I do think it's important that we still, date human beings and have social interaction with human beings if you want to do something. But this is an example of how machine learning is used in order to learn from us, our behaviors, and how we do things. The first group or classifications of machine learning technologies relate to vision or computer vision. This is where a computer takes images or pictures, puts it in a computer readable format, meaning in a way that the computer can actually understand what it is seeing in some way or shape or form, and transforms it to perform a very specific task. A good example is the one that you can see on the screen right now, where a computer vision algorithm augmented with a clustering algorithm groups people into different boxes. So the computer is able to, in real time, identify what is human and what is not. The second set of applications relate to text and language. If you look at Google Translate or Grammarly, those are examples of natural language processing algorithms that use text, features, and language to be able to perform certain tasks. The third set of applications deal with movement, where you have an actual robot moving through space and time. A good example of this are self-driving cars and the technologies that go into them. The last set of applications have to deal with decision making in real time. This one is a little bit tricky to conceptualize, but if you bear with me, we can figure it out together. Let's take the example of a Roomba. Roombas aren't common in South Africa, but in other parts of the world they are. A Roomba is a tiny little device that moves through your house that cleans your floors. Now let's say the Roomba is faced with an obstacle, something like a ball or a chair. Should it go left, right, reverse, go around the object? These choices lie with the machine, and each scenario looks different. So for example, it would be easy in this example to turn left if the ball is in front of you. But it would be a lot harder to turn right because there's a wall. On the other hand, in another example, if there's a chair, it would just be easier to go through it. But you might get stuck. So the Roomba has to have some kind of algorithm or some kind of technology inside it to learn as time goes on. If it does certain things and it does it well, it can get rewarded. Very similar to how a human being does things. And if it does something that is not favorable, it can get punished. We can build those same thinking patterns into machines so that a machine can get smarter over time. Now, up until this point, I've mentioned some machine learning things in isolation, meaning I spoke about these concepts as standalone things. But in reality, where machine learning is currently and where it's going is it integrates all of these technologies at the same time. And remember what I said? Artificial intelligence is the collective noun for all of these technologies in isolation. I do research in higher education, and what I'm trying to do is establish a framework from within universities and online systems where technology can learn about the needs of the students. Because frankly, we don't have enough people to look out for our students. In fact, it has been shown in several studies that up to 20% of students will never seek academic advice before they drop out. And that is a result of them not understanding or navigating the system. Now, isn't there a way for us to build a system that can understand the needs of our users? One thing we should never do is see artificial intelligence as the Wild West of science. A lot of companies and businesses have in the past implemented algorithms too soon with detrimental effects. And so it's important to always consider the fundamental theoretical underpinnings of what they mean and what they represent. Like I said in the beginning, these concepts aren't new, but the application of them at the scale at which they are applied, that is. And this is just part of the fourth and potentially the fifth industrial revolution. I think it's important that we remember our humanity. And I also think it's important that we never stop engaging with these critical concepts. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
This is a preview file.
Thank you very much, Hergulas. Say hello to your cat. And we continue now with the next video from India by Indu Joshi.
With the advent of biometric identification system, UIDAI, in India, Fingerprint-based authentications are used for a gamut of applications ranging from opening a bank account, buying a new SIM card, or to receive subsidies from the government. However, incidents have been reported which emphasize on the challenges of fingerprint systems on rural population. Hello everyone, I'm Indu Joshi. I'm a PhD student at the Computer Science Department, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Today, I want to share my research on improving fingerprint matching of rural population. BRICS nations constitute approximately 41% of the total world population, with majority of its population residing in villages and involved in occupations involving excessive manual work. This degrades the quality of the fingerprints, leads to scars and cuts, and in turn leads to poor quality fingerprints. Standard fingerprint matching systems are often benchmarked on Western population, due to which they achieve unsatisfactory performance on rural Indian population. This often creates an unpleasant experience for rural population during security and other civilian applications. Though the challenges in fingerprint matching of rural population have been identified, no solution is proposed so far which is specifically targeted to improve the performance on rural population. Towards this, as a part of my PhD research work, I propose a fingerprint enhancement model which improves the quality of the fingerprint images of rural population and in turn provides improved fingerprint matching performance.
Okay, so let's discuss that what are the challenges which are incurred while matching fingerprints of rural population. Firstly, there could be dry or wet fingertips, due to which the contrast between the ridges and the valleys of the fingerprint images will be poor. Secondly, there could be poor skin conditions as a result of the manual work. There could be creases, scars, or even injuries. Thirdly, there could be cosmetics that could have been applied on the fingertips, such as henna, or sometimes subjects may interact with the fingerprint sensors in an uncontrolled way. Either there could be too much pressure or there could be too less pressure while giving the fingerprint. Now let's discuss how does these challenges translate to fingerprint matching systems. While trying to match two fingerprints, fingerprint matching systems compare ridge features such as ridge endings and ridge bifurcations between the two fingerprints. Due to the factors mentioned before, poor quality fingerprints with unclear ridge structure are obtained for rural population. As a result, incorrect ridge features are obtained, which in effect adversely affect fingerprint matching performance. To address these limitations of standard fingerprint matching systems, we propose a fingerprint enhancement model. A fingerprint enhancement model is targeted to improve fingerprint ridge structure by removing background noise and predicting missing ridge information due to scars and cuts or application of cosmetics like henna. The shown figure represents the proposed fingerprint enhancement model, FingerGAN. FingerGAN learns the transformation from a poor quality input fingerprint image to a good quality fingerprint image with the help of over 10,000 examples exhibiting similar transformations. At the core of FingerGAN lies a sophisticated artificial intelligence inspired architecture called Generative Adversarial Network or GAN. GAN is a large architecture that extracts different salient information or features ingrained in the image. However, we observe that many of the features are redundant. We adapt the features such that important features have higher activations and redundant features have lower activations. Due to this, better quality enhanced images are generated by the proposed FingerGAN and improved feature extraction and matching performance is obtained as shown in the next figure. Left column in the figure shows the matching scores obtained by the standard fingerprint matching system on the original rural fingerprint images, while the right column shows the matching scores obtained on the enhanced images generated by the proposed finger scan method. Viewers can see that the proposed method predicts the missing ridge information and generates fingerprint images with improved ridge valley clarity, due to which higher match scores are obtained. All the experiments in this research are conducted on a public and a private database of fingerprints of rural Indian population. However, in my understanding, this work is extremely relevant and can be easily adapted to the rural population of BRICS countries. Thank you. This research is partly sponsored by the Raman Sharma Fellowship.
Thank you very much, Indu. Great job. And now we continue with the next video from China by Zhao Changchen.
Vital signs usually refer to a group of physiological parameters that maintain the basic activities of life. Vital signs mainly include the following four parameters: body temperature, heart rate, respiration rate, and blood pressure. These parameters help to assess a person's physical health, provide clues to possible diseases, and indicate the progress in recovery. Heart rate is the most important parameter in vital signs. It plays a very important role and is the basis for doctors to judge the disease. The common methods used in vital signs monitoring are contact or intrusion. When measuring, the device requires the body to make direct contact and transmit signals through a conductive patch electrodes and wires. The advantages of contact measurement are stable and low noise, but it also has many disadvantages. In infant intensive care unit, premature infants are unsuitable for contact measurement because the baby's skin is very fragile, so contact devices will do harm to their skin. There are also some situations in which contact measurements are not appropriate even for adults, such as people with skin allergies, burn victims. In recent years, with the development of computer vision, the measurement of vital signs has gradually changed from contact to non-contact. There are many physiological signs in the body that can be captured by visual sensors, such as heart rate signals in skin color changes caused by blood flow. One of the most medical techniques that can extract physiological parameters is remote photoplethysmography. Ordinary digital camera can be used to shoot the skin surface of human body, and the change of skin color caused by blood flow can deduce physiological parameters such as heart rate and blood pressure. So skin color changes are consistent with the heart rate, known as RPVG signals. Remote RPVG is an extension of traditional PVG from contact to non-contact. Non-contact PVG has great potential applications in medical treatment, sports supervision, and assisted driving. First, in medical field, people began to explore the feasibility of using remote PPG to measure physiological indicators such as heart rate and respiration rate. This makes the measurement more flexible and convenient instead of relying on the contact device. Especially for premature infants in ICU, this technique has significant potential for application. Not only in the medical field, RPPG has a great potential for application in many other fields. For fitness exercise, RPPG can measure heart rate without any restraint in exercise and improve the exercise efficiency. We can also use RPPG to monitor the driver's physiological indicator without uncomfortableness. Once the driver appears fatigued driving, drunk driving, and they will immediately get a warning.
Thank you very much, Chan Cheng. It's a pity we could not hear the beginning and the end of the video. It looks like that's the format the video came in, and yeah, just sorry about that. We now continue with the next video by Anton Dolganov from Russia.
Hello, do you know that according to World Health Organization statistics, every 10th person in the world suffers from retinal or optic nerve disease? In the long run, 1 in 4 of them may completely lose sight due to a medical error. The main reasons for medical errors are: the first, subjective perception of the patient's diagnostic results; the second, in the course of observation, a large amount of data is generated about the patients, which the person is simply not able to analyze. The third, very often it's not possible to collect a complete anamnesis of the patient due to the limited time of admission. My name is Alexander Gorobets. I am CEO of Faraday Lab. We offer a solution for these problems. AI tonometry is smart record of patient for ophthalmologists. This platform is a web application that is adapted for mobile devices. We offer automatic analysis tools of the results of measurement of intraocular pressure, photos of optical coherence tomography, and maps of visual fields. These tools are machine learning models. By objectively analyzing a large amount of data about the patient's condition since the discovery of the disease, our artificial intelligence gives the doctor personalized recommendation for each specific case. The platform works in a certain way. The doctor performs diagnostics and receives results that need to be interpreted. To do this, the doctor uploads photos of the results to the platform, which sends them to the server, where our algorithms analyze them and return the results and the optimal treatment strategy to the doctor. Let's take a closer look at the example of measuring intraocular pressure using the Maklakoff method. Principle of method is that the doctor puts weights of different mass on the patient's eye and prints the resulting imprints on a sheet of paper. Then uses a special ruler to measure the resulting imprints. Using our platform, the doctor takes a photo of the sheet with imprints and uploads it to the platform. Our artificial intelligence finds the imprints, marks them in the eyes and the masses. After the specialist confirms the marking correctness, our algorithms predicted the resulting intraocular pressure as well as the quality of the procedure. Prior to this, there was no quality assessment for this method. At the moment, our solution is unique and hasn't analogous in the world. Why a similar solution didn't exist before? We highlight the following reasons. The first, it's necessary to collect and analyze big data to create machine learning models. Research institutes of eye disease in Moscow and Samara help us in this. Secondly, before that, only point solutions were offered for analyzing a single method of diagnostic. However, a reliable diagnosis can only be made with an integrated analysis. And the third, various machine learning models were tested for a long time. We have multiplier reduced their development time due to the method of project work in startups. When creating our artificial intelligence for the 1 year, we tested more than 30 different models which were trained on more than 20,000 real imprints. We made a research that involved 41 ophthalmologists in Russia. This research has shown that our platform works 66% more accurately and 90% faster than human. This saving time will allow doctors to collect a more detailed anamnesis and provide clinic to accept more patients due to automation of the process. Today, our platform is already used by practicing ophthalmologists, and we receive grateful feedback. My speech lasted about 5 minutes. During this time, 95 people in the world completely lost their sight. If our platform was used worldwide, we would save 22 of them from complete blindness.
Well, that was not a video by Anton Dolganov, it was a video by Alexander Gorbet, so thank you very much, Alexander, for what you do and for the video. And the next one is Anton Dolganov from Russia.
Hello everyone, my name is Anton, I'm a young scientist from Ural Federal University, and today I would like to talk about the most beautiful math equation, machine learning, and biomedical signals. From school, one can nominate the Pythagorean theorems because everyone learn about it, and there are like dozen ways to prove it. If you learn more about calculus, you will find Euler's identity beautiful because it combines the simple numbers like 1 and 0 with more complex ones. Then in physics there is mass energy equivalence, which opens a way into nuclear physics. Also there is a logistic map, which can be used to population modeling in a non-linear way. But for me, the most beautiful math equation is quite general, and it is y equals f of x. We can interpret it as follows. X is your input, data you have, assets you have. Y is the expected output of this data. And f is the transformation function that helps you reach the output. And this equation can be used not only from the pure mass point of view, but you can see almost any process in the world as this function. For example, in film industry, X can be anything from director to screenplay to actors to effects you can make. And you can make different goals. For example, make either best movie or maybe highest grossing movie. For the best movie, you need maybe focus more on the script, which can tell a very appealing story, and actors who can communicate this story to the audience. For the highest grossing movie, you should maybe focus on a big brand, so a lot of people can watch this movie, and some cool special effects, so people will have to go to the theater to see it. Now, machine learning. Machine learning comes as an alternative to a traditional programming, when we have data and some hard-coded rules F, and we expect the machine computer to give some answer. But world is such a complex place, and you can't find a hard-coded rule for everything. Because of that came the idea is to let computer himself find these rules using the data and expected answers. And depending on how what do you expect as the output, there are different machine learning tasks. For example, there is unsupervised learning, where you provide computer with just data and some basic information. For example, find me two distinct groups of data here. It can be done in such task called clustering. Also, there is supervised learning, where you provide computer with more data. For example, if you expect infinitely many types of answers, for example, you can find price depending on the area of the house, and you need to find intermediate values. You can build a curve, which is called regression curve. Or you can have a few possible answers. For example, you need to distinguish cats between dogs. For that, you need to know some decision function which can separate these two groups. These are the classification tasks. In my work, I use analysis of biomedical signals. And as for whys, we had two types of people, healthy ones and ones suffering from arterial hypertension. As the data, we have records of electrocardiogram, which is a very informative way to obtain information about human body functioning. And speaking about Fs, there are some simple models which can have one or two parameters, and there are complex deep neural networks which can have up to 1,000 or even millions of parameters. In my work, I decided to focus more on what data I give to the machine learning algorithm, because as you can see, the ECG signal have different parts, different informative features, but not all of them can be suitable for a particular task. In order to find ones most suitable, I use so-called genetic programming paradigm, which basically based on the evolution idea. And through the several rounds of selection, evolution, transformation, I find the most informative sets of features for this particular task. These results were quite good and were worthy of publication in very good journal and become foundation of my PhD thesis. After that, I decided to use the same paradigm for different tasks. There were tasks of predicting of arterial pressure using non-intrusive methods, so it was a pure regression task, and these proposals got me a grant from a President's Council. And then another interesting area of application is athletes' fitness level, which combined regression and classification task. This idea got me support from the foundation FACIE, so there are a lot of interesting tasks for me in the future to solve. Some final remarks: know your X, know data you have, know what you can do with it, understand the Fs, so it won't be a black box, because you need to explain how you get this result. And finally, find such whys that are important and that can help make our world a better place. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anton. And we have just one more video to go in the science stand-up battle, and it is also from Russia, from Maria Gordeeva.
Good afternoon for everybody. Oh, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thanks, good. My name is Gordeeva Maria. I am a Deputy Head of International Relations Department in Kansas State Power Engineering University. And at the same time, my mind requires scientific researches and profound discoveries. That's why I dive
in exciting world of science on the Water Bioresources and Aquaculture Department. What could be in a clear drop of water? At first glance, nothing. But drop on the glass leave a mark. And in the microscope, you look at it. You can see the beautiful world of protozoa. On the other hand, one drop of water is negligible for the whole ocean, as is one scientist for the whole world of science. If the drops come together, we can already fill a pool where we can grow valuable aquaculture facilities in the future, thus solving a number of environmental and economic problems. For example, the maintenance of biodiversity when cultivating the redbook species, ensuring the country's food security and solving the problem of fish shortage. Similarly, scientists united into a well-coordinated team can make a significant contribution to science. That's why we all have our own niche in science, but together we are going to one goal. For effective reproduction and cultivation of environmentally friendly products require physical and chemical knowledge to assess water quality. Biological for proper filling and maintenance of the culture of the active sludge in biofilter. For calculation of the feeding. For aquaponics. Microbiological to determine the epizootic state of fish. Technical for the design and maintenance of closed water supply systems. pH is currently used as a standard indicator for the cultivation of valuable fish species. It is known from the scientific literature that there is a link between pH and redox potential. Redox potential is a measure of the chemical activity of elements or their compounds in reversible chemical processes associated with changes in ion charge in solutions. Positive redox potential values indicate oxidative conditions and negative values indicate reducing conditions. The redox potential value is determined by the presence of ions, oxidant elements capable of receiving electrons, reducing elements capable of transmitting electrons. In addition, Oxygen is the most important oxidizer and organic matter, and certain bacteria are the reducing agent. Redox potential researches date back to the mid-20th century. Interest in redox potential research has not faded in the 21st century. In our view, redox potential is a more promising indicator. And first of all, it is an easily verifiable instrument. Numerous measurements of the redox potential of the natural waters of the Tatarstan Republic revealed that 1 pH unit corresponds approximately to 59 mV of redox potential. This makes it possible to consider the redox potential as a more sensitive indicator than pH. Thus, devote time to respond if need to improve water quality. How? For example, to reduce cultivation density, to increase runtime, to change pH. Experiments have confirmed the sensitivity of the redox potential to water quality decline on water-closed systems. We identified areas of comfort, oppression and death for the valuable fish species. So, let's remember together and bring back life to a measure like redox potential. And together we will control water quality and quickly respond to water changes. Water is all of our lives. Without water, everyone would have died. The water of the planet, hold on, let clean rains save you. We will not leave you, dear, in the whole world. We will save you our water.
Thank you, Maria, for showing us the video. This was the final video of Science Stand-Up Battle. Please vote for the performance that you enjoyed most of all in the Media tab at the forum website. You can do so starting from 6 p.m. Moscow time today. And in a couple of minutes we will continue our work in parallel sessions, so please stay in the same rooms where you are now. Don't log out. See you soon.
Dear participants, welcome back to the scientific panel session on artificial intelligence of the BRICS Young Scientists Forum. We will have two series of 5 presentations divided by a coffee break. Let me shortly remind the regulation rules. Each presenter will have 12 minutes. During the presentation, you are to prepare your questions in a chat by using the raise your hand mode. After the presentation, we will have a possibility to ask one short question, and after all the presentations, we will have possibility to discuss all the presentations. So we can start. Our first presenter is from Brazil, Hugo Cesar de Castro Carneiro. Please, 12 minutes and stage is yours.
Hello everyone, I am Hugo Carneiro. I am a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Hamburg, the Department of Informatics. Wow, but what someone that's working in Hamburg is doing in a BRICS conference? Well, I am here to represent my former institution, the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, which completes 100 years on the beginning of this month. I worked at the System Engineering and Computer Science program at COP-FRJ. There I work on the group whose main focus was on weight neural systems. But what are weightless neural systems? Why are they interesting? Why am I talking about them? Well, weightless neural systems are like other neural systems you have there, for instance, convolutional neural networks and so on. The main difference of those systems compared to the traditional ones are that their knowledge is stored inside the neurons instead of inside the synapses. This difference makes it more versatile, and it also provides lower computational costs because it does not use all that complex mathematics and backpropagation system in order to learn. It uses discrete information instead of continuous one. This also allows a fast learning capability since you need only to pass once through all the data set in order to learn. You do not have to do several epochs passing through it all over again. This also provides a system that you do not need to have too much gigabytes of CUDA memory and all the most expensive material, like all the most expensive hardware. So it's very nice for countries with low budget for those kind of science. Due to its work with discrete information, it's also possible to implement this model in hardware in order to get a much higher performance. It has competitive results in several fields. It's also, it has a modular architecture, makes it very parallelizable. And it's also very simple to explain to middle to high school students in order to introduce them to computational intelligence, which is very important, especially on the coming days where this will be on our everyday life, which already is. And I think the most important thing about these systems is that they provide explainability, which is a thing where we need to go towards to explain what we are learning. Not, okay, this system gets its input, spits this output, but what did it do? What was the procedure? What pattern it discovered? Why is it? What's this explanation for this classification? Regarding the results we did several publications on a variety of fields, from language processing, emotion recognition, real-time object tracking, data stream clustering, time series classification, and so on. And from these good results we tried to go further into the theoretical results, which led to one of the main contributions of my doctorate thesis, where I studied and calculated the learning capacity of this model, that due to its use of discrete information, it was at least easier to get an exact result, which usually people get some kind of bound. They do not get the exact point, the exact value of this capacity. And the good point that we have a pretty nice capacity, which can be as high as we want, without the burden of overfitting, which can be quite strange at first, but it is one of the main contributions of my paper. Nowadays, I changed from my previous institute to now here to Germany. I also changed my field of work. I abandoned a little bit the weightless neural systems, but more in a way to expand my horizons and to work on further fields. Now I'm working at the Knowledge Technology Group. I'm working with cross-modal learning. So I am working with multimodal and cross-modal learning. what would be this? It's the kind of learning when you have several modalities. In the case here, we work with sensory modalities, so visual data, audio data, textual data, and combine them in order to provide some classification. And what's the difference between multimodal and cross-modal learning? In multimodal learning, you have these modalities and try to combine them to get one classification. But in cross-modal learning, those modalities combine in an adaptive and synergistic way, so that in case you have your vision impaired because the lights are low and so on, your hearing will provide you further information for you to perceive what you're seeing. Or if you were watching someone talking, but suddenly a plane passed by, or there's some kind of noise, you see the lips of the person speaking, and that helps you to better understand what the person is saying. And the link I see in this project I am now to what I did, the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, is that we aim at, instead of using one complex model to solve a big problem, to use simpler models working together in a synergetic way, so to achieve the result. So it's better to work with the simpler things and use them together in order to provide a good result, instead of using a huge architecture, and all of a sudden you have new data, you have to test to train it all over again from the scratch. So inside this project, I am working on a sub-project focused on joint attention. Our focus is on the social interaction and the social cue integration. What do I mean by social cue integration? Those several modalities provide some kind of social cue. For instance, what kind of emotion a person is trying to pass with a kind of gesture. Where a person is focusing on, if someone points with the head towards somewhere. And so I get this information from the pose of the person, from the prosody of the person, from the gaze, the gesture, the face expression, so on, in order to provide information regarding attention, regarding emotion, and other things. So we want to study its impact on communication and affective behavior, and not only from the perspective of from the computational perspective, but also on the psychological perspective. I may have gone away from Brazil for a little time, but here I'm also working with a lot of people from the BRICS. Here we have a collaboration with the Chinese Academy of Science, especially the State Key Laboratory of Brain Cognitive Science and the Department of Psychology. And we are trying to do some kind of HRI system, a human-robot interaction system. So to, at the end of our project, to put that all on a robot and see if the robot can provide this attention, this ability to get empathetic with the next, to the person he's talking to, he's interacting with. If he can predict the person attention, it's good to see if someone has some kind of attention disorder and so on. So it has several potential further uses we can do from this project. Well, I do not have too much to say about where I'm working now, especially because it's a BRICS forum, so there's not too much to say about my work here in Germany. But I still have some links with the people in Brazil, and so I'm trying to combine what I'm learning here with the people there in Brazil and also with the people in the other parts of BRICS. And at first, we are doing some use of multimodal, cross-modal learning, and in a short-term goals in emotional recognition and active speaker identification. Since we're working in multi-part scenarios, you must know when someone speaks, to whom we should focus our attention to. And in the medium-term goal, after we do these short-term goals, we'll try to focus more on attention prediction and so on. Well, that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugo. Dear participants, any questions for the presenter? Do we have? Please, Denis Ponomarev.
Hi, Hugo. Thank you for your presentation. I have a short question about weightless neural networks that you were speaking about. Is there a study, or has there been a study on the relative expressiveness of these networks comparison to other, well, learning models in general? So what kind of functions can they approximate, for instance, or similar studies?
Okay, the study on bringing those models were initially meant to work for classification instead of regression. There has been a recent contribution trying to bring regression to those models, but it's fairly new. It's something like 2018, 2019. And people did not do this study is still in its first stages. There have been some contributions in the late 90s, but it has been somewhat kind of abandoned. And our group tried to recapture these not design, but this work with regression and so on, especially because we work on some we work on a challenge here from the same group and now working as a postdoctoral research, and we needed to work with regression. We needed to provide emotions in the sense of arousal and valency, which are continuous values. So the work we did for a challenge for the group now I'm working with as a postdoctoral research associate is the one that brought the need to use this model for regression nowadays, if I can make myself clear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugo, for your answers. We should go further. Our next presenter is from Russia. Please, Anton Dolganov, 12 minutes, stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. I would like to talk about application of machine learning methods for biomedical signals processing. This is the content of the presentation. It will be my background, some signals that I process, methods I used, results, and achievements I got so far. So about me, I'm Anton, I'm 27 years old, and I graduated from Ural Federal University twice. Once as a specialist in medical physics, and second time as a specialist in informatics and computer engineering. And strangely enough, this year my university also celebrates 100th anniversary, but it will be in October. Also, a couple years ago, I have defended my PhD thesis, and the topic was application of the machine learning for developing sort of decision support system for physicians. Now I continue to work in the Ural Federal University. I have position of associate professor and junior researcher and do some lectures on machine learning. Also, I am affiliated with IEEE organization. In particular, I am vice chair of Siberia section in Russia. And we kind of trying to do several scientific activities. For example, our main activity is a conference which combines 3 tracks: biomedical engineering, radioelectronics, and information technology. This conference happens every May, so if you're interested, you can find more information on the link. But back to that, yes. And by the tradition of Russian presenters, we want to show you where my city, it's also kind of in the center of Russia, but from the other point of view, it's close to the border between Europe and Asia. Anyway, back to the topic, machine learning. As was mentioned in science stand-up video, I like to see machine learning in a very simple way. You have data, you have some expected results, and you have some algorithm to transform this data. And the data is the core of everything. In terms of that, I was very lucky because Scientific group where I got was able to obtain relatively big database in one of the local hospitals. This database had two groups of subjects. One are patients suffering from arterial hypertension and healthy volunteers. As the data, they mostly recorded electrocardiogram signal, which is a signal of electric heart activity. The most important information is considered to be the RR intervals, and these signals of RR intervals plotted against time is called heart rate variability. So these heart rate variability signals were recorded in three functional states. First is rest, when subject is calmly laying on the ground, then we up the person by 70% degrees, it's so-called tilt test, then we return to functional rest in horizontal position. If you can know about these signals, there are a lot of methodological recommendations for doctors, and there are a lot of features you can extract. These are some basic statistical geometric features, nonlinear, spectral, and features obtained by the Webb transform. Overall, I have analyzed 64 features, and if we consider each functional state different, it all can be summed up to around 200 features. Basic statistical analysis have shown that yes, there are several features that are statistically different for these two groups of patients, but they are kind of overlapping. And my scientific advisor wanted to get some better predictive model. And these results kind of do not contradict already existing works. Because of that came the idea of using not all features, but maybe some combination of features. Solving it in a brute force was kind of hard, and because, you know, if you evaluate the possibilities of number of combinations, it can be very big, like several millions or even billions, if you consider like even 5 features combinations. Because of that, I was looking for a more elegant solution, and I found one while I was on a foreign scientific internship in Portugal, in Universidade Nova de Lisboa, in Faculty of Sciences and Technologies. There was some interesting studies and very nice group of people. There I have learned about idea of genetic programming, which is sort of using the ideas of the evolutionary theory, of this Darwinism for programming. For that you need, first of all, to encode information, like basically DNA, encode information about everything living around us. I used simple binary encoding, where I encode by ones and zeros whether or not I include particular feature in combination, and there is also possibility to encode the features of machine learning algorithm. This binary encoding makes it easier to transfer this information within the computer. After that, because you know from the life, you need some way to change this information. I use basically two principles, the crossover principles, where you basically combine results of two different chromosomes, and mutation, when you randomly change one of the gene in this chromosome. After that, we need to get fitness functions in order to know how our solution works in this area. For that, we used the leave one out cross-validation accuracy, because it's kind of make the algorithm less dependent on our learning. So the overall algorithm is basically simple. You have some initial population, which is some random chromosomes, then you start evolution, evaluate this initial population, and pick best n of the populations. They directly go to the copy group. Then from this copy group, we create mutation and crossover groups, and they goes to the next generation. After that, we decide whether or not it is time to stop the evolution. If we are not satisfied with the result, we go back again and go through this cycle several times. If we finally satisfied with results, we move out of this algorithm. So as for machine learning algorithms, we have used some pretty basic traditionals because they work kind of better on the smaller data sets, but they also kind of easier to explain to the doctors because the goal was to make so the physician make kind of sense of what solution we provide to them. So these are kind of summary of the results. The best results were obtained by two approaches. It is quadratic discriminant analysis and naive Bayesian classifier. And it is really fascinating to see the results improving over time because you do not particularly tell the algorithm to improve, you just tell him to find best features, make random changes, and somehow it will make improvement. And it's really fascinating. Also, I did not stop. Yes. Then we wanted to know what kind of why the algorithm make such decisions, because we obtained not only one particular combinations, but set of diagnostically significant features. Because of that, I looked in more detail to the mathematical description of discriminant analysis, and it all basically comes down to several sets of matrix multiplication and summation. In the end, there is like single number for binary classification, which is either positive if person is healthy and negative if it is patient. But it's kind of hard to get idea how distinct feature make the contribution to overall analysis. Because of that, I made some slight changes. Instead of matrix multiplication, used pointwise multiplications, and it allowed me to get sort of matrix of how we can assume the contribution of distinct feature to the total solutions. These are some examples, and it shows that for different patients there are different features that are more expressive, and these are features in different functional states. Also, I have tried to use the same paradigm for other tasks. For example, for task of fitness level prediction, there we have used signal of stabilography. It is the trajectory of the person's center of mass, together with the ECG signals. Also, we used the special functional layout called target, when your goal is to make sure that the red mark is within the bullseye, so you need kind of to focus on this task. And this algorithm allowed us to at least differentiate some normal people who don't do sports regularly from competitive sportsmen. And these ideas got me support from the Passier Foundation for Young Innovators. Another task that I have tested this approach is blood pressure prediction. I have made some sort of algorithm that is able to find change of the blood pressure if you know previous values and values of heart rate variability features. The results are not good, but also not so bad, and it's kind of promising to see what can we do more with tweaking the algorithms or maybe data. This idea got me support from President's Council for Young Scientists. Instead of conclusion, this is kind of small list of my key publications, because I'm not only doing machine learning, I have some other responsibilities in my lab. But in a way, I'm still kind of looking forward to do more and maybe write more papers on my result. Thank you for your attention. I'm always open for communications. If anyone has some questions, you can ask them now or contact me via mail, Telegram, or whatever. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the interesting presentation, Anton. Please, do we have questions from the participants? Once again, please. Hercules Kambrink from South Africa, please.
Oh.
Will do. Hi. Thank you so much. Very interesting presentation. What I wanted to know from you is you mentioned that, and I'm just thinking about unique feature selection and sort of what this means going forward. You mentioned that being able to detect heart rate was specifically heart rate, then leading into arterial hypertension, leading into blood pressure. Have you thought about maybe expanding this, looking at unique features like pulmonary embolisms, or using this to detect secondary healthcare effects that could result from these? So sort of taking it at a meta level a little bit deeper. So if you, for example, can get a good prediction on pulmonary hypertension, are you able to then translate that into predisposition to tachycardia or embolisms, looking at blood clots, very unique features that would arise as a byproduct of these things? So on the face value, it's the first level of stuff, but then as it goes on, it leads to the more dynamic medical diagnosis that requires deep imaging and a lot of decision making from clinicians.
Yes, thank you for your questions. It was kind of suggested, but it's kind of at the moment on backstage because this kind of better results plus, yeah, but it's kind of somewhere in mind. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Thank you for the answer. Do we have one more question? We do have the time. Okay. Once again, please.
Yeah, Anton, this is Abhinav. Can you hear me?
Abhinav Sharma, please.
Yeah.
Your question.
My question is, while doing this feature selection, have you incorporated the motion artifacts that are caused with the sensors, or have you tried to formulate it in terms of the error that is caused by the motion artifacts?
Well, it was considered at the processing stage.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Thank you for the answers. We should go further. Our next presenter is from India. Please, Anup Nandi. 12 minutes and stage is yours.
Hello, good evening to all of you. So my name is Dr. Anup Nandi. So firstly, I'm very happy to be part of this conclave, and I'll be very happy to share my research that I am working on. And I am working as an assistant professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at National Institute of Technology, Rourkela. So this is one of the most premier institutions in India. And I have developed a lab, so that is called Machine Intelligence and Biomotion Research Lab. And these are my lab web page. So if you want, you could browse it, where you could see my different activities. And this is my contact ID, where you could contact me. So today I'm going to just discuss the different, what are the different role, how the AI techniques are very useful to handle different healthcare applications. So now, so my main focus to discuss that two different topics that I have worked on, or recently the work is going on in my lab, so that so while discussing this kind of research with you, so it may be so happen that you would be interesting, or I may be interested with you for some possible collaboration with the BRICS countries, so that we could submit a joint research proposals. As in the previous talk that it was a kind of the Anton was talking about some kind of biomedical signal processing. So my work is somewhat related to this area. So I am applying some advanced machine learning techniques Okay, for analysis of, firstly, I'll be explaining to you that one part, that is a human cognitions, or understanding the human cognitions through motion analysis. So I'm trying to build up I'm trying to find a relationship between the human brain and the motion. So by analyzing the human gait or the motion, so I'm trying to predict these cognitive states. So that is my first work that I'm going to discuss with you. And for this reason, so my input sensors are Microsoft Kinect 2.0, because as we are trying to make a low cost, using a very low cost devices, how it can be useful to common people, also that some people can be benefited. So next work is that wearable sensor based. So I'll be explaining to you how an inertial measurement unit sensors, IOL sensor, can be useful for the clinical gait analysis perspective. And I'm applying some deep learning methods for recovery prediction of some neurological diseases. Like, one of the interesting neurological diseases to investigate is their cerebral palsy. Okay, so the CP children. So I am working on the CP children data and the autistic children data. So I'll be explaining to you, and I have developed with my students one VGA tool for it will be helpful for pathologists to analyze this by using the VGA tool. So this people will be able to extract the features and do some kind of study for the clinical gait pattern. So now, firstly, I just wanted to tell you this: what is the gait cycle is. So now, as in the figure below, so you can see. So now the person walks. There's a different events are there whenever you are going to walking. So gait means there's a person manner of walking. It's called a gait in a layman language, and it has got different phases. So you'll have to propagate to the different phases and to so these things. And the different phases are called the heel strike, then the mid stance, toe off, and the mid swing. So now we have understood. You can see from the diagram, there is a 60% of the entire gait cycle is contributed for the swing phase, and this is a stance phase, and another 40% is for the swing phase. So now this motion or the gait pattern is being captured by different low-cost sensor. One low-cost sensor is called the Microsoft Kinect that I am using. Another is low-cost sensor is that IMU sensors. So we are using this smartphone company to make one cost-effective devices. How a cost-effective devices would be useful for doing the clinical gait analysis. So next is my next slide. So that is my lab. So as you can see that I am working with the multi-Kinect environment systems, because I am using these multiple Kinect devices. So first research experiment that I am going to explain to you how you can estimate the cognitive state through analyzing the motion pattern or the gait pattern. So your input is your gait pattern, which is in terms of some kind of signals which are getting from the either hip angle or knee angle or ankle angle that I am extracting from the images or from these Kinect data, and by applying some kind of algorithms that I'll explain to you, then you'll have to predict the mental states. Okay, so whenever you are walking, suppose you are in the you're in a very happiest moment state. Now your pattern will be something like that. Now you are in the very sorrow state. Now your pattern will be like that. So how the gait pattern will characterize your mental state. So that is my objective. So now here you can see the person is walking, or it is a standalone picture, and I have extracted colored images. The Kinect will give it to this colored image, depth image, body index, and the skeletal images. So I have done two type of experiment. One from extracting means analyzing these skeleton coordinates positions from the Kinect and extracting some different intrinsic features like this joint angle. Okay, so in the joint angle features is very important features for distinguish between these two individuals. Okay, and this is my lab. So I have experimented. So I have collected this data. So this data is called the ambulatory motion capture setup. So as you can see that in order to artificially create this cognitive state, what I have done, so I am projecting some external stimuli in the screen, and person is wearing the headset. So I am using this emotive headset, and as you can see that in the thigh and the shank of the person, so some IMU sensors are attached. So and the persons can increase the speed. So you can just change the speed, and while the person is walking on the treadmill, so you can capture the different types of data in the different states. Okay, so this data will be coming from EG signal, as well as that is from this kinet and these IMU sensors. Okay, so these are the experiment, but it was very challenging task to create this environment. So now what I have done to create this environment, because we have divided different cognitive states, like emotion oriented states, there is a memory oriented states, relaxing oriented states, and thinking oriented states, and simple relaxing oriented state, and illness oriented state. For each different states that I have decided, and for each to create these states, so I have given this some external stimuli, and yet this light was entirely very dim light, so that person will concentrate on these particular videos. And for this corresponding things, so different type of gate that the persons can change by using this treadmill. One is slow gate, there's a normal gate, fast gate, and the running gate. There's a 4 types of gate. Now using this gate, I am trying to find a relationship. So how do I create these things? So to create these UA state, emotion oriented states, so there's a Geneva affective picture database are available. So I just shown these pictures in the display, then I just instruct the person to concentrate on it, and at that time I can able to capture his pattern. So the pattern was coming from the IMU sensors as well as the kinet sensor. For these thinking oriented states, some kind of mathematical puzzles or kind of logics that you're going to give it to you, then the person will be concentrating to solving the puzzle. So at that time, how your motor skills are behaved. So now for that instance of time, so I'm going to capture this data. So similarly, so I have given these different external these stimuli, and all the external stimuli was being projected onto this screen, so that persons will be concentrating on seeing this stimuli, and at that time we have captured this data. So now after doing, we have done a lot of image, the single processing was, there's some artifacts and all other things to remove the artifacts. We are applying some independent component analysis method and other things. Okay, then we have extracted some kind of frequency based features and the time domain based features, so we have extracted. So now to make sure that whether that this signal that we are going to getting whether it is means really characterize the mental state that I have created. So now we have computed the signal to noise ratio for the each cognitive states that we have seen, that SNR ratio for this state is belong to from this 35 decibel to 38, which is exactly that is the benchmark values from the emotives from the emotive data set that we have checked, that FC6 channel that we are using. So for capturing these mental states, for different type of mental state, if you could get, so this type of SNR value, it means that you are going to handle these concrete signals. Okay, so because without, I mean, very less noises. So that's why we have plotted it, and we have checked it for 2 different data sets, for the two different 5-6 different cognitive states. Then we get to know that the signal to noise ratio are acceptable in this within this range. So next one, after doing these things, so what I have done, so we are doing these 2 different analyses. So one is called, so you'll have to first understand these human motions. So now there is a 2 separate study that has been done. One is that we have created applying some gate energy image that we have created. Suppose you have a one gate sequences, from the gate sequences. So now we are going to compute this, how much I mean images are required to complete a one gate cycle. Then from these images, so I have created a energy images. So actually energy image is actually averaging all the images over the entire gate cycle. So as you can see that I have created a GI images, and also I have created some skeleton images. I mean, this is an the stick model. So stick model has been generated from the our RGB images also, sorry, from the depth images also. So now to have this, I mean this stick model. So what I have done, so we have just used the semi-dynamic object tracking algorithm. So we have proposed it, and whenever only we have concentrated the that portions where the person is working, and the rest of the portions we are not considering. Then we are just computing the body segment ratio, because there is some proportions from your head to your shoulder, from your shoulder to your elbow, and from your elbow to your knee, knee to hip, and hip to ankle. So by calculating the body segment ratio, so we are fitting some line, and from the line that we have, as you can see in the figure number 8, that there is a stick model that has been generated from the images, and some the bounding box that we have used, and and the skeleton frame. So now this stick model has been generated. So after creating the stick model, we are applying feature extraction method. So now simply this angle between these two vectors. So I am creating the angle between these two vectors to compute this knee angle and hip angle and the ankle angle. Now this study that has been done, that is a feature. Another features that we are using this get energy images, and we are passing these entire GI images to the 2D CNN model. So as you can see, there is a 2D CNN model has been depicted. So this, so that depending upon your requirement or the applications, so we have changed these convolutions real and this max pool layer, and that we have modeled it in our for getting the good amount of results. And this work is very important, and it was published recently in International Joint Conference on Neural Network, IGCNN. So I know all of you might be knowing this is a very good conference. This is a core A. So this work has been published already. And this work motivates me that to extract these features automatically, so that it will be useful, that using these features you can estimate the different cognitive states. Okay. So next is that so our deep learning architectures for the classification of the subject independent cognitive states. So here this we have created a novel event driven environment to using some external stimuli to collect this ambulatory EEG signal. So while person is wearing the EEG signals, so the person is in motion. So that's why it is called this ambulatory EEG signal. So whenever person is walking, so at the time we are going to capture this EEG signals for different cognitive states that has been defined. Now we have so now the one problem that we are facing, that our data was not sufficient to run with this deep learning algorithm. So what we have done, we have applied some augmentation method. So that's why we have approached apply the restricted Boltzmann machines, okay, to increase these data sets by applying the augmentation method. And this method is called, this is a unsupervised feature learning algorithms, and by on the EEG signals to extract these salient features for the classification purposes. So we have used in different type of classification like this PNN, probabilistic neural net, Bayesian, okay, and KNN, all other neural networks. I mean all other classification techniques that we have applied. Then as you can see, so we have two different architectures that we have proposed. One is called this RNN and LSTM. There's a recurrent neural network LSTM combined, and another is, so first model one is this before augmentation. So this kind of model architecture we have applied. Next one is after augmentation by applying this DBN plus this RNN and LSTM. Okay, so deep belief neural network, so which follows this restricted Boltzmann machine. So means whenever we feel that if your data set is very less, which is not suitable for a applying the running the deep learning algorithm, so now it is recommended to apply the augmentation method. So we apply the data augmentation method, and we achieve this very good results to means meet our requirement. So this is one type of work. So next work that I just wanted to show, this is a pathological gate using this convolution neural net. So I am concentrating on this inertial sensor based or the wearable sensor based pathological gate. So now we have captured this spastic gate, or you can say this spastic this cerebral palsy gate from the children. So we have been collaborated with some institute like this Indian Institute of Cerebral Palsy, and from where I could we are getting those data, and we are using the inertial sensors like this to get the informations from these persons and applying this convolution neural network method, and to get this good amount of accuracy. So now this objective of this particular research is that, so modeling this spastic gate pattern, which is a very common gate pattern in cerebral palsy gate, and we apply this some gate classification method using inexpensive IMU sensor to develop a cost-effective clinical gate analysis
Dear
system.
Dr. Nandi, please 1 minute.
Okay, I'll just complete. So I just applied some wavelet decomposition method for the feature representation. So as you can see, so these are this 1D CNN method that we have applied on these data that is coming. Actually, we are getting these two types of one is called the linear acceleration and the angular velocity. So from the accelerometer, we are getting the linear acceleration, and the gyroscope, we are getting the angular velocity. Then after that, we are using some k-fold cross validations and this lasso validation. So lasso means this is the least one subject out method. So sorry, leap one subject one validation. So now we have obtained a very good classification accuracy. So now these are the tools that we have developed, and it has already been copyright, and this copyright has been granted recently with the registration number is with these things, where you could get it is an assistive tool for clinical human gait analysis, those who are working in this domain. So actually it is an annotation tool. So this annotation tool will be really useful to annotate this event, gate event, and extract some intrinsic features. Okay, and these are the user interface that pre-processing. Next is that these are the interface modules that we have developed, where you can do a lot of operations. You can apply some filtering method like this calibrations, clipping, denoising. So all the things are there, and it is also there in YouTube videos also. And this is my main objective is that only to focusing applying this modern AI techniques in the healthcare applications. So basically, I'm focusing on this to handle to recovery prediction of the neurological diseases like the cerebral palsy and the autistic spectrum. Suppose main aim is that after recovery of this gait, spastic gait, so how much confidence level the trainer is going to provide us. So now our tool is going to give it to this automatic solution. So this much of percentage the person is fitted, and it can walk like a normal human being. So that is the video. I just wanted to show you this very short video that in my page.
Hello everyone. This video is about a web application tool that we developed called Viz Gate Assist or VGA to help users in the gate event annotation process. In gate analysis, it's a common procedure to extract gate cycles and annotate events such as heel strike, foot flat, toe off, etc. In this sensor, we have particularly considered triaxial gyroscope sensor because it has the advantage that the events can be easily identified with maximum minimum. You can upload your file. Suppose I take this one. You can see the signal has been updated. Now apply a cycle extraction method. I select zero crossing, which is a very efficient method. Now it's important that you select your base axis very cautiously depending on your data collection process. For our case, it's Z axis. So I'll select Z axis. Now if you want to change the length of any particular cycle, suppose I take the cycle 6, specify the cycle ID here. And the cycle length has been updated. We have also incorporated some auto update method to help in the process of cycle extraction. The first one is auto update with fixed length that will update all the cycle length of all the remaining cycle length based on the selected cycle length. Also, we have auto update with varying length, which is based on a paper titled Periodicity Detection of Quasi-Periodic Slow Speed Gauge Signal. The algorithm is based on Hausdorff distance and case test, which extracts cycles based on the
So actually, this link is there. So I'm just running out of time. So if you could, if you're interested, so you can get the links and you can show it. So I'm just completing. So thank you so much. So I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Dr. Nandi, for the interesting presentation. We do have a bit of time for one short question. Do we have? Please. Pinav Sharma, please, one short question. We cannot hear you, Professor Sharma.
Dr. Nandi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, please,
Yeah,
Abhinav.
this is a very novel approach you have used for the cerebral palsy and spastic patients. We were also trying to use Kinect for gait analysis in the staircases, basically. So, what kind of problems you faced while interfacing multi Kinect systems? We were actually facing the same problem.
Yes. So thank you so much, Professor Sharma. So it is a very good question. So I just tell you. So first of all, whenever you are going to using this Kinect, so now Kinect is not a very reliable devices. First of all, for this, actually it was used for the gaming purposes, but here for people are using only for we recently started to the from clinical application domain. So that's how I started. So whenever you are going to use this Kinect, so you need to do first this calibration is very important first. One is called this, suppose I'm going to use some multi-Kinect based system. So for the multi-Kinect based system, you need to show the space synchronizations and the time synchronization. So these are the very important. So without doing these space synchronizations and the time synchronization, so we are not be able to capture this data simultaneously. So now after that, we have recently submitted one paper on this calibration method on the multi-Kinect based systems. Okay, first of all, okay, so
I guess we are running
Dear
out of
Dr.
time.
Kane.
We can connect later, sir. We can connect later. Yeah.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for giving.
Thank you for the answers. We should go further. Our next presenter is from China. Please, Yang Chen. 12 minutes. Stage is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me and see my presentation. Right. So my name is Yang Chen from Anhui University. Thanks for the organizers for organizing this forum and for the invitation. Here, I would like to express my strongest support to all of you in this difficult period. I will talk about how to use artificial intelligence to look for stellar sources for gravitational waves. I'm an expert in artificial intelligence, so I'm very happy to hear your suggestions. So in this talk, I will tell you the situation of artificial intelligence techniques in astronomy. Then I will introduce briefly the gravitational waves and our project to use artificial intelligence to find the stellar sources for the gravitational waves. Then a few concluding remarks. So my research field is astronomy. We study the universe. The universe spans from the smallest size to the largest size, and it crosses a large time scale, we know. Our understanding about the universe is mainly driven by the observations. From the observational data, we test our theories about the universe. For example, in the 1930s, astronomers found that stars are mainly accumulating in a few stripes in this Hespron-Russell diagram, or the stellar luminosity against the stellar surface temperature. So this discovery helped us to develop the theory about how the stars evolve, and it is still the most important tool in this field. On the right-hand side, so in this plot, Hubble and some other people classified the galaxies into spiral galaxies and elliptical galaxies and found the connections between different types of galaxies. This diagram helped us to on how the galaxies and the universe evolve. So in all these examples, the computer was not used because at that time there wasn't a computer available and they didn't have enough observation data. But in modern astronomy, we have collected a large volume of data, which is out of the capacity of human beings without the help from computers. So astronomers always follow every progress in computer science. So in the past 10 years, we have seen the fast rising in artificial intelligence. So of course, we cannot miss this useful tool. So just to give you some impression about the data volume in astronomy, I'll give you some examples. This is an image taken by the ground-based Very Large Telescope. It's an image of the star cluster in our galaxy. So we see millions of stars. But if we look at it with the Hubble Space Telescope, we see even more stars, especially the faint stars. And our Milky Way contains millions of star clusters. So this image is just a small portion of the sky. So we see a
Dear
lot
Yan
of.
Chen, sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you. Please
Yes.
run your presentation once again, because we lost it.
Sorry, really? So, sorry, but could you see my presentation, right? Sorry. Hello. 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 Hello.
In Zoom we cannot see the next slide because we do have a hanging picture of the first slide. You see?
Okay, sorry. Only first slide is seen. No, sorry. So I show it again. Sorry. So.
Okay, thank you.
So now wait. But you can see it now, right?
Try to change the slide. Try to change, please. Next. Could you please show us the next slide?
Or maybe I use this one. So can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. But did you hear my voice? Or
yeah, of course.
So do I have to start it over again, or just?
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay. So which part? Sorry. So which one?
Could you please prompt me? This one. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So so I'm showing you some examples about to give you the impression of the data volume in modern astronomy. So this is an image for the cluster in our galaxy, which is 47 TARC. So this image is taken with the ground-based telescope, very large telescope, and we see a lot of stars. And if we check it with the Hubble Space Telescope, then we see even more stars. So our galaxy contains a lot of such star clusters. If we look at a small portion of the sky, we see a lot of stars and a lot of structure, and even a lot of stars which do not belong to the star cluster. So we have a lot of information to digest. And even more, our galaxy is just one among the millions of galaxies in our universe. So the hierarchical structure can be represented in this cartoon. The whole universe is too complicated for human beings, so we need artificial intelligence to help us. Especially with future powerful telescopes, which are under construction. So this included the James Webb Space Telescope, 30-meter telescope, large synoptical survey telescope, square kilometer array, and some Chinese telescopes, for example, the Chinese Station Space Telescope, and the Wide Field Survey Telescope. So just to end this part with a funny article recently published on Nature Astronomy. So the author was complaining that astronomers are using a lot of computing resources which impact the environment. He suggested the astronomers to do the research in a more energy efficient way. So far, a lot of works have already been undertaken by astronomers. So I show you a few cases. The first is that some researchers use the artificial intelligence method to analyze the image of the moon and found 6,000 new craters on the moon. The second is to use the artificial intelligence to construct a 3D model of the asteroids arrows. And the third one is to detect and classify the distant galaxies based on the image taken by Hubble Space Telescope. The third one is to identify near-Earth asteroids, so which is very important if we cannot detect the asteroids in a fast and effective way. We might be maybe one day killed by the asteroids. So I now go to the topic about the gravitational waves. So in 2016, we have had about the exciting news that for the first time in human history, we detected the signal from the gravitational waves with the LIGO. This signal was detected in 2015, about 5 years ago, also in September. It was produced by two black holes merging. They have masses of the stars. This symbols a new era in astronomy, which means besides the traditional way of using electromagnetic radiation method, we could also use gravitational waves to study the universe. The other important signal was detected in 2017, which was produced by the merging of two neutron stars. So far, we have detected about 15 gravitational wave signals. All of them are related to stars, which is not expected by, for LIGO when it was constructed at the beginning. So there are many different types of sources for generating gravitational waves. For example, the Big Bang produces the radionic gravitational waves at the very low frequency 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the times minus 17 Hertz, and then the merge of big dark matter halos, they can produce gravitational waves at these frequencies, and then the gravitational waves by the merging of supermassive black holes at the center of the galaxies. Then the gravitational waves produced by stars at such frequencies. So far we have detected gravitational waves at such ranges, and we are upgrading the detectors and hope to detect gravitational waves at the lower frequencies. But for the moment, stellar sources are the most promising sources for detecting gravitational waves. So we are starting this project to search for stellar sources responsible for gravitational waves. I'm not going to the details of the techniques and the physics because we are from quite different fields. It might be difficult for me to explain in a few minutes. And we are just starting it. There are still a lot of issues. We do not have a clear idea yet. So basically, we will extract gravitational wave signals from the detectors, the data collected by the detectors, such as LIGO. So we will analyze the data with some artificial intelligence techniques. And they will try to capture the corresponding signals from the electromagnetic radiation with help from artificial intelligence. And compile all this information that we can compare with the theoretically predicted models. Then we can derive the properties of the sources and test our thinking about the fundamental physics and the universe. So this project is under the Stellar Evolution Collaboration, SEC, which is initiated by me and my colleagues. A lot of work have been postponed due to this pandemic. So I hope to tell you more progress next year. So just in conclusion, artificial intelligence is a powerful tool for astronomy. Traditional tools will be incapable of dealing with enormous data to be collected. This is especially true for detecting gravitational wave sources. There are LIGO and Virgo functioning on detecting the signals. And there are some bigger detectors under construction, such as the LISA by European Space Agency, and the Tianqin and the Taiji, and some others by China. So on the electromagnetic side, we have many telescopes working and many to be built. All these facilities will produce huge volume of data, which will need AI to help. So we are starting this project to search and analyze the stellar sources for gravitational waves and hope to have some fruitful results. So that's it. Thank you. Hello. Hello. Hello.
Of time, I'm sorry, I should give a word. Our last presentation in this session before the coffee break. Please, Masikisiki Bafumilele from the South Africa. Stage is yours, 12 minutes, please.
Okay. Hello. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
Okay. Okay, lovely. Hello, all. Good morning to some. Mbapu from University of Pretoria, and I'm a first-year PhD candidate. So this is just like a proposal kind of work. So there's nothing much to say in terms of results. So the work that we're trying to do, we're trying to introduce the application of AI and in education in an African context. So this one is largely based on natural language processing in education. The following is called utility value intervention. So according to this one researcher called John Dewey, increasing student performance is very critical. Increasing student performance interest is critical in trying to find ways that can improve the performance of students. So he says that if we find ways that can increase the interest of students, then that will mean students do find value in education. So one of the intervention that has been used to find ways that can increase the interest of students is called utility value intervention. And this intervention is derived from a psychological theory called the expectancy value model, which says that motivation for a given behavior can be determined by two factors: a value of the output, so the value that one sees in the certain task, and the desired output of that task. So that could be something that can interest student interest. So these interventions, they can be integrated into course pedagogy, whereby students are asked to write assignments or any task of assessment that will help, whereby they will write these assignments, whereby they try to find ways they can relate the learning content to their lives outside. So currently there are two types of UVI. There's directly communicated and self-generated. So the directly communicated one is whereby a teacher tries to tell students that doing, let's say, doing a certain programming course can help you be able to build web applications, for example. And then there's a self-generated intervention whereby students try to find meaning and connection within a certain course topic and what's happening on the outside world. So this intervention is being used mostly to improve students to continue doing science, but then researchers have been using it for different sections of research like psychology. So it has been proven to be effective, especially for students with history of poor performance. But the problem is that this intervention has it's time consuming. Marking these assignments and coding these assignments for researchers becomes a problem. They have to understand the course content. For example, if they marking maths, they have to understand maths deeply, and they also have to understand the principles that need to be followed in order to be able to score this this intervention. So over the years, this is just a picture, like a quick picture to show how to approach this intervention. So if you look at this diagram, you can see for the first one, so the topic here in this class was about muscles. So the first student says, this is how muscle work. So according to this intervention, that is a poor way of finding connection between muscles and what is happening on the outside world. But if you look at the last one, the student says, I now know how muscle work, how to build, and I can optimal, and how to optimal train for soccer. So that meaning that they learned about muscles in class, and now they're able to find connection. So the problem now is how can this be, how can AI come and help the human evaluation, supplement human evaluation? So over the years, machine learning methodologies have been proposed to find ways that can automate this process of marking. And a work that has been done by Beta, he found a confusion matrix of 87% for a data set that has same subjects. But then the performance now tends to drop if they use different subjects, which shows that these models, they still have a problem of generalizing different subjects. So here's one of the things that he says in the future work, this is the things that we can look at. He also says that from their work, the models were good at performing from a scale of 0 and 1. If you rate your essay from 0 and 1, the model tends to perform well. But now if you extend the scale from 0 to 4, then the model tends to perform badly, especially for essays. So now this shows that machine learning is still failing to encounter for this problem. And then Kavesh suggested that using deep learning, in his work, they tried to use RNNs and CNNs to try to find ways that can improve the performance of the models that were done in machine learning. So the argument is that with RNNs and CNNs, they can be able to capture, they perform better than machine learning, and also they are able to capture for big words like long sentences. But again, this work was then disapproved by Lee, where he says that, of course, yes, these recurrent models, they do work. They can capture long sentences, but still they still fail to account for coherence, which is also important when you try to mark an essay. So then they propose a self-attained model, which is what we also trying to go, and we're trying to follow this this architecture, saying that if you were the person who's marking an essay of a student, you don't look only at the goodness of the essay, you also look at the structure, the connection between words, and RNNs are still failing to do that. So they're saying that with self-attains having these different heads, then they can encounter for big essays, and they fast, and the key part is that they're able to recognize relationships within the essays. So we will be we're proposing to develop this model based on the work that has been done for machine learning, and saying that introducing the self-attention model, it can improve this scoring method. So our proposal is that having this model, a model that can make this process of UVI very effective, we can then now be in a position of evaluating the effects of UVI in our, in an African context, using different subjects, and to see if is it working or it's not working. But then the starting point is us to have that model, because doing this, it has been shown that doing this manually is time consuming. So we're not only looking at the UVI. So our plan first is to have a model that can be able to automatically score reflective writing in general. Then we move from that scope and go to the UVI principle, which are more like the reflective writing approach. So we're saying that having this model in education, it can also help teachers to be able to do the marking faster, especially in reflective writing, and it can also help students to be encouraged to do a lot of reflective writing at large. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, do we have questions? We still have a bit of time to discuss. Okay, thank you. Please. Please, Inger Fabrice.
Sorry?
Hi, there we go. Hi, Louis. I wanted to ask you what fields are you focusing on in terms of the assessments and stuff like that?
Currently, we have a relationship with the Department of Linguistics. So the students that we're approaching is the health students. Yes, so yeah, I think for us now, we will just try to evaluate this, if this intervention does work with this, our group now is still the health student, but then, like I'm saying, that it's been proved to be working for psychology and also for science, special science. So now we're trying to replicate the same thing and see with our data, how can this be effective? Is it effective or not?
That's very cool.
Thank you for the answer. Do we have other questions? No. Dear colleagues, we still have 3 minutes, so we squeeze our coffee break a bit, so we can have a rest about 3 minutes, and we will proceed the second session on the artificial intelligence. We will have 6 presentations. Thank you. Dear participants, welcome back. I hope you are not so tired. Um, we have 6 presentations, and the first one is from Brazil. Paulo Nyberg-Orenstein, please, 12 minutes. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody for coming and for the great presentations. And thanks to the organizers for such a great conference. Today I'll be talking about predicting the weather. But first, by way of introduction, my name is Paulo. I'm a visiting professor at IMPA, which is this beautiful math institute you see on the left, which is inside of one of the Brazilian forests. I have 3 research areas, probability, statistics, and machine learning. In probability, I've been looking at robustness and finite sample guarantees for mean estimators. In statistics, I've been looking at non-convexity, Bayesian statistics, and MCMC. In machine learning, I generally study applications for health and weather, which is what I'll be talking about today. So how hard is it to predict the weather? Well, generally, if you want to do a long-term weather prediction, so more than 2 months, the situation is quite hopeless because at the end of the day, we do know that the system is chaotic. However, if you're trying to do a short-term weather prediction, now that's feasible. It's something you can do. You can use your phones to see whether it's going to be rainy or sunny tomorrow. And the way this is generally done is you have a physics-based model of how the atmosphere works, and you run these differential equations a couple of hours forward, and then you get a prediction for what's going to happen. Now, of course, there's a middle ground between short-term and long-term, which is it's what's called the subseasonal or medium-term weather prediction. And at this scale, physics-based models no longer work. However, this is a very critical window of time. So for anything you'd like to do around allocating water resources, managing wildfires, predicting droughts, this time horizon of 2 weeks or more is very important for you to move resources around countries, especially if your countries are as big as Brazil, Russia, India, China, or even the United States. So, for example, here's an action plan that the United States launched late 2019 on trying to improve water prediction. And a couple of days after that, you could have a New York Times cover story about learning to live in a world on fire. So, of course, these problems are very grave. They're only getting worse, and trying to predict at this scale is extremely important. So how is this done generally today? So in the US, they use what's called CFSV2, Climate Forecasting System version 2, which is just one of these models that try to encompass every single physical aspect of the atmosphere and how it works, coupled with ocean, land, and surface sea ice. And you try to do predictions based on these physical equations of the weather. Another model that's being used is called the NMME. This is the North American Model Ensemble, where you basically get different models, physics-based models from different centers in North America, and you just average those. So it's a first step in using statistical tools to get a better prediction. However, at heart, both are really examples of numerical weather prediction, that is, physics-based models. And the question is, can we use machine learning to extend the time horizon from 2 weeks to something more? So this is a question that we're going to consider. It's also a question that interests the US government very much, so much so that in 2017, they launched a real-time forecasting competition to do exactly that. So in particular, you had to predict 4 things. You had 2 variables, the 2-week average temperature and the 2-week accumulated precipitation or rain. And you had 2 forecasting horizons, 3 to 4 weeks out and 5 to 6 weeks out. So essentially, every time you were supposed to do any forecast day, you'd have to predict 4 things: what the average temperature would be on weeks 3 to 4 ahead, what the average temperature would be on weeks 5 to 6 ahead, then the 2-week accumulated precipitation on weeks 3 to 4 ahead, and the 2-week accumulated precipitation on weeks 5 to 6 ahead. So 4 things. And you had to issue these forecasts every 2 weeks for a whole year. So this started in April of 2017. So every 2 weeks, you had to do these 4 predictions. And these were predictions in the Western US geographical region. So this would be 17 states, basically 514 grid points, which you can sort of visualize here. All the blue points are actually grid points you would have to make a prediction for. So here on the left, for example, is California. So this happened for a whole year, and the way this contest would go is something like this. Here's a picture for the predictions that we submitted on the 9th of January for the 2-week period starting on the 5th of February. So this is what actually happened. This is the observed ground truth. This is what we had predicted that day. This is the CFSV2, this physics-based model, which is a baseline. And this is another model that was taken as a baseline in this competition. Now, I haven't talked much about what the loss function is here, but you can kind of think of it as a correlation. It's basically a slightly modified version of correlation, but for our purposes today, it's enough to think of it as correlation. So whenever it's deep red here, if it's red here, this is good. And if it's red here, but blue here, this is really bad. So this is an example of a week where we did really well compared to CFSV2. Here's an example for precipitation. The other one was for temperature. So in this example, we didn't do very well, but neither did CFSV2 and the other baseline model we had to beat. Okay, so this is how the contest played out for a whole year. And the question is, how do you do these predictions? How do you create a model that's good at the subseasonal scale? Well, the first step is getting data. So no data were provided for this competition, so we had to collect our own. And we scraped all sorts of weather variables from 1980 to today regarding temperature, precipitation, and many other variables that were suggested to us by meteorologists. Now, doing this in real time, of course, presents many processing challenges, which I'll spare you the details. But at the end of a lot of work, we have this data set of 10 gigabytes, which we now made available here on this link. So if you want to try doing your own weather predictions, hopefully, this will help you out. So with this data, what kind of models should you try? Now, let me get something out of the way. Many of the reasonable things you try here would not work. So here's some examples. Autoregressive models didn't work very well. Lasso was not a good idea. Gradient boosting, deep learning, these didn't fare very well, and neither did reduced rank regression. So I can tell you more about why these didn't work, but let me instead tell you about what did work. So here are two models we developed. The first called multi-LLR. So this is a local backward stepwise linear regression with multitask model selection. That's a lot of technical names. So let me try to explain. By local here, what I mean is we're subsetting the training data around the target date. So if we want to predict what's going to happen next July, we're only going to look at June and July data from the previous years. We're not going to consider data from, let's say, October or September. And then we use stepwise linear regression to prune out the features that weren't important. And finally, this was done using multitask model selection, by which I mean that when you were pruning, the variables you were throwing out could not do well. You wanted to keep the variables that were doing well when predicting over all the grid points we had to predict. So this is one model that uses all of our data, multi-LLR. But another model that's quite different that we developed is called AutoKNN. This is a k-nearest neighbor autoregression. The idea here is kind of intuitive. Let's say we want to predict the temperature a month ahead. So maybe what we could do is look at how has temperature been behaving up until today. So let's say it's been hot, hot, cold, hot, hot, cold, 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 cold. So what I can do is look in my database for a similar pattern in the past of hot, hot, cold, hot, cold, 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 and see what happens a month after that. And I can use that as a predictor. So essentially we did that 20 times. We found the 20 closest nearest neighbors in this sense of the word, and we used that as features in an autoregression. So this second model doesn't use all the features. Actually, it only used lagged target features. So if we want to use predict temperature, it only used temperatures from past states. So these are two very different models. However, ensembling them performs much better than any one individually. And one of the advantages of doing these simple models based on linear regression, or KNN, is that you can do very interesting visualizations. So here's an example. You could wonder if you're trying to find the nearest neighbor for a prediction in January, is it true that nearest neighbors for predictions in January come from other dates in January in the past? And what you can see here is that this is true for precipitation. So the nearest neighbors from January are generally around January, February, kind of March, and then December. And you see this local structure throughout the neighbors for precipitation, and it's very different from temperature, in which the nearest neighbors from January seem to come from all over. And I can speculate later a little bit about why this is the case, but right now, let me just tell you the results of our models. So in the contest period, so as the contest was running, this was between 2017 and 2018, our models fared kind of well. So here on the rows, you have all the 4 tasks we had. The models are the multi-LLR, Alto KNN, our ensemble of both, CFS v2, which is the physics-based model, and the top competitor during this competition. The loss function here, again, is kind of correlation, so the higher the better. And you can see that the ensemble model that we had was faring better than anything else. So then we went back and we looked at an evaluation period to see whether that was still true if we look at 2011 to 2017. And it was still the case that you had LLR and you had Alto KNN, and the ensemble was generally faring better than both, and in particular better than CFS v2. Then we thought, hey, maybe we could actually ensemble our ensemble model and CFS v2. Maybe we can try to combine the best of both worlds, machine learning and physics-based models. And indeed, if you look at the loss function here, actually the gain function in this case, but for our mixture of our ensemble and CFS v2, it's doing much better than anything else. And visually, here's an example of, in red, you see our ensemble that we developed, the Alto KNN plus multi-LLR, the machine learning ensemble. In green, you see CFS, the physics-based model. And so combining both, you see this blue line, which actually hugs the maximum of both lines, both the green and the red line. So in a sense, it's as if you could actually get the best of both worlds by combining machine learning and these physics-based equations. Now, I gleaned through lots of details in interest of time, but to conclude, this subseasonal forecasting is a really important and really largely unsolved problem. We have some physics-based models in this arena, but simple statistical models can actually significantly improve on those. But rather than just improving, we can actually combine the machine learning models and the physics-based models for models that are even better than the current state of the art. We've released our data set on Dataverse, and the paper's on archive. It's been published as well, and you're free to look at it and see if you can try to do something better. And most likely you can, since all of these models were developed through this real-time competition, and we're kind of hopeful that we can do a lot in this area by looking at more fine-tuned models. And I hope this is enough motivation for you to try your hand at it as well. Thank you.
Well, I raised my hand for a question. I think now it's time to ask one. Thanks a lot. I have a question about the combination of the 2 models, well, the physics-based one and the ML-based one. Can you tell a bit more about the way they were combined?
Yes. Yeah, well, sorry, I didn't see the hand raising. Basically, so the way they're combined is very tailored to the loss function that was chosen for this contest, which was basically kind of a cosine similarity between you can look at our prediction map, those blue and red heat maps that I showed, and the actual truth. So the correlation between these 2 images, or the cosine similarity between these 2 images. So the way the ensemble was done was actually by doing a linear combination where you'd weight each of these predictions by their L2 norm. And that you can actually prove that for that specific loss function we're interested in, on average, that would do better than each of those individually. There's some convexity arguments here, and basically that very simple idea of combining is enough to get all those huge improvements.
Okay, I see.
Thank you for the answer. Our next presentation is from Russia. Rustam Burnashov. Please, 12 minutes, stage is yours.
Okay, are you hear me? So, good afternoon and good evening, dear colleagues. My name is Rustam Burnashev. I'm very glad to meet you at our meetings. And my project is expert system building tools based on dynamically update knowledge base. First, let me introduce myself. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Programming Technologies at the Kazan Federal University. I'm graduated postgraduate studies of Kazan Federal University, and where of my research interests are expert systems, machine learning.
Could you please speak a bit louder?
Data analysis and computer vision. So I have been received different awards in different projects and development of expert system building, and have 26 scientific publications. Our students are actively involved into scientific projects and publications of research work. We have been participated in the hackathon, intelligent transport systems and element of situation centers with the project real-time crash detection. We developed an information and analytical system for the situation center as a decision support system for accident fixing, which detects car detection. At one of the conference, a student present software which could diagnose leukemia based on results of clinical blood test. University students took part in the intelligent chatbot in education project, which was originally aimed to involve school students into science. So we look and work with students, and not only students in our university, we work students from school and involve them to scientific projects. So the project annotation, my project is aimed at the software tools providing computer-aided development of expert systems. These software tools permit to reduce substantially the complexity of expert system building. The software tools represented as integrated development environment have been approached in the building of different expert system for education, healthcare, and some other applications. Now, let me introduce the main steps of our research and development. In 2015, we created expert system on Swi Prolog and connected it to XPC library. So we have been created graphical shells for expert systems. Next year, we have been provided compatibility of expert systems with database management systems. We tested with systems in different operation systems such as Windows, Linux, and Unix. In 2017, we used case tools for knowledge-based design, and also we have embedded different programming systems such as PHP, JavaScript, Prolog, and database management systems into integrated development environment. Also, we solve the compatibility tasks. In 2018, we developed a testing tools for the expert systems inside integrated development environment. In last 2 years, we created UML model to describe the structure and behavior of integrated development environment. Also, we have tested a communication between heterogeneous software system between each other on the platform Cypress.io. The next slide shows the structure of logical part of integrated development environment, which includes the four main components of our systems with knowledge base, field for entering new facts and rules, the query, interface for knowledge base, and interface for results and reports. Logical part was implemented in Prolog programming language. So it's the four main parts in our system. In this slide we present the software system for expert system building. So our main interface of integrated development environment include interface for creating software requirements and software tools for building an expert system and communication with knowledge base in Prolog. And also we communicate different elements with data analysis and make some predict with our system. So here the demo version of expert system vaccination in integrated development environment. It's designed for patients which need to be vaccinated. The expert system was made in cooperation with staff of medical faculty in our university, basing on all needful data, where graphical interface was created. So in this demo version show how can we input new facts and rules in our system, and after that system automatically generated graphical shells for expert system, and all facts and rules had been submitted and tested with expert. Checkup of application logic was performed in Prolog system. So now you can see with generated form, and we integrate Prolog system to make some prediction. This inference engine model now. As you can see, we insert new facts and rules and testing how our rules work, and this interface give opportunity to experts to check rules and how can system give some prediction. So now let me introduce about different research and about information about my university.
Kazan Federal University was established by Emperor Alexander I in 1804 and became the third oldest university.
Sorry, you hear sound? So did you hear sound?
Yeah.
University in Russia. At that time, it was the easternmost university in the country, and its educational district covered the Volga region, the Kama region, the Urals, Siberia, and Caucasus. World-famous dignitaries such as writer Leo Tolstoy, Soviet revolutionary leader Vladimir Lenin, inventor of video recorder Alexander Poniatov, and many others were students of Kazan University. The great mathematician Nikolai Lobachevsky was among the longest-serving rectors of the university. By the presidential executive order, Kazan State University was transformed into Kazan Federal University in 2010. 7 local universities merged with it as well. Average age of our teachers and professors has decreased from 52 to 40 development areas. Biomedicine and pharmaceutics, advanced materials, oil extraction, refining and petrochemistry, info communications and space technology, social studies and humanities. Kazan Federal University is rising steadily in international rankings thanks to the contributions made to the priority research by our physicists, chemists, biologists, mathematicians and social scientists. All priority areas are inextricably linked with digital technology. Our 3 structural units in mathematics and IT are engaged in robotics, big data, machine learning and artificial intelligence studies. In line with the chosen priority areas, brand new technological developments have emerged at the university. Medical research and education were also returned to the university. We established the Institute of Fundamental Medicine and Biology, which engages in graduating practicing doctors and medical researchers. Classroom studies are complemented with practical lessons in our Medical Simulation Center, featuring the use of simulators and machines produced by the Medical Engineering Center. The innovative nature of these technologies is attested by the fact that Japanese colleagues have bought our products and are adapting them on their own platforms. Kazan Federal University adheres to the open science paradigm and has established a number of open labs and excellence centers with participation of the world's leading researchers. The university's medical cluster currently comprises the Institute of Fundamental Medicine and Biology and the University Clinic. The latter has become a platform for technology transfer, research and education. About 90,000 local residents are serviced by the University Clinic, and there are 870 beds for inpatients. The University Clinic works on introducing cutting-edge methods of cardiovascular treatment and other high-tech innovations, including genetic medicine. Our Institute of Geology and Petroleum Technologies actively expands worldwide with its expertise and applied research for the hydrocarbon industry.
That's all. Thank you for your attention. We are open for cooperation. If you have any question, you can please contact me. I try to.
Thank you, Rustam. We have a bit of time for one short question, please, if we do have. Please, one short question from Denis Ponomarev.
Yes, can you work with probabilistic data in the expert systems you mentioned?
Okay. So in our expert system, we use different data, and we use only dynamic type of data. It's data what includes in 3 prolog system, and our system generated only dynamic type of data, and we also check our system with different elements of type of data, And for example, we connect machine learning tools to detect objects.
Okay, thank you for the answer. We go further. Our next presentation is from India. Indu Joshi, please, 12 minutes. Stage is yours. Please turn on your video. Indu, please. Okay. You can start, please. We cannot hear you. Something wrong with your microphone, please. Ms. Indu, please, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Is everything okay now?
I think yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So, hello everyone. I'm Indu Joshi. I'm a PhD student at the Computer Science Department, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, India. As you must have seen in my video also during the stand-up battle, I'm here to present my research on improving fingerprint matching of rural population. So, as you all know, fingerprints are a widely used biometric technology. They are used for various applications ranging from access control, civilian applications, and even forensics applications. However, there have been some studies which indicate that the fingerprint matching of rural population is especially challenging. So what are the challenges which make the rural fingerprint matching really difficult? So firstly, there could be dry or wet fingerprint images which will have poor contrast between the ridges and the valleys. Also, since the rural population is extremely involved in the manual work, their skin conditions could be poor as a result of the creases, scars, or injury which are observed while doing the manual work. Also, in many subcontinents, women apply cosmetics on fingers like henna, which adversely affect the fingerprint image which is being captured through the sensor, due to which the wrist structure is not clear, and as a result, the fingerprint image quality is poor. Also, while giving the fingerprint image, the subjects can interact in an uncontrolled way with the sensor. So either they can put a lot of pressure or they can put a very less amount of pressure while giving the fingerprint. As a result, the fingerprint image could be poor quality. So here I show some of the sample images from the IIIT Delhi Rural Fingerprint Database. So as you can see in the first image, there is a scar in the top left. You can see that there's a scar because of maybe some injury. Also in the second image, you can see that the ridges are too thick, that the valley structure is not visible, that the ridges are so close that they seem to have been joined. But of course, there's a valley between them. Similarly, in the last image in the first row, you can see that the ridge structure is hardly visible. like that, in the second row, first column, you can see that there are creases in the image due to all. So these are some of the samples which showcase how challenging rural fingerprint can be. Next, towards improving the fingerprint matching performance, I propose a fingerprint enhancement model. A fingerprint enhancement model is basically a dedicated module in the fingerprint matching system, which is there to improve the quality of the input fingerprint. So my agenda is that given a poor quality fingerprint, just as shown in the second bottom part of the image, you can see that given a rural fingerprint, the image which is being generated by the proposed model has less creases. It has much better ridge structure. So that is the whole agenda of creating a enhancement model. That is the how the output is desired. So how do I go about doing it? So I propose a generative adversarial based network called FP-GAN, fingerprint GAN. So how do I train it? So I take some poor quality fingerprint images, and then there are some corresponding good quality binarizations of them in the ground truth. Since the rural fingerprints are very limited, the data set that I work on is very, very limited. So I have actually created some synthetic examples by doing some morphological operations on good quality images. So having these pairs of about 10,000 examples, I train the model to learn to be invariant to the noise which is commonly being observed. So after training the FP-GAN, during the testing time, there is only one forward pass is required through the generator part of the FP-GAN, and you can generate a good quality enhanced fingerprint image. So these are some of the sample results. So as you can see, for the input image, the kind of image generated by the FP-GAN, it has much better ridge structure compared. If you see the first column, then the ridge valley structure is much clearer. You can easily see the valleys which were initially not very well visible in the input. Similarly, in the second column, you can see that at places where the intensities was ununiform, the ridge structure is much better. Also, you can see in the third image that the creases are not as prominent as they used to be in the input. So these are some of the sample results which I got. Also, I do have some other metrics like fingerprint quality and ridge structure preservation, which due to the time limit, I tried not to put in the video in this presentation. But for a simple understanding, I can show this case that these are the two fingerprints which are being matched, let's say. So we have one element in the gallery which is enrolled in the database, and one probe is the image which is given during the test time. So originally, if you are trying to match these two fingerprints, since the ridge structure is not that well defined, also there are some creases because of which the fingerprint features which are being extracted by the standard fingerprint matching systems are not very reliable. As a result, the match scores which I got before any enhancement, just the raw images, it's 13. But after enhancement by the proposed model, on that output image, the match score is 57, which is a high improvement. Similarly, the second row, these fingerprints were not at all recognized. So there was no feature which have been extracted. As a result, the matching score was 0. But after the enhancement, there was some restructure, of course, not very, very well defined. So there is scope for improvement. But still, since it generates some relevant rich features, the match score has improved to 18. So this shows that indeed, enhancement method can help to improve the fingerprint matching of the rural population. So all the experiments which I did in this research are actually done on a publicly available rural fingerprint database of Indian population and a private database of rural population of India. But in my understanding, this work is extremely relevant and can be easily adopted to BRICS countries also, because they also have a lot of population, firstly about 41% of the world population, and also a majority of it is involved in rural manual work and is like rural population. So I think this work is extremely relevant and can be adapted to the BRICS countries. if you want to contact me, this is my email address. Also, I would like to acknowledge the partial financial support by Raman Sharma Fellowship for this research. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the interesting presentation. We do have time for the questions. Please, do we have? Please, once again. Could you last name, please? Ingrid Fabrice, please.
Sorry?
Do I have a question?
Yeah.
Didn't I put my hand up? Oh. I didn't have a question, but I'll make a question then. Have you implemented it? Have you just developed a model? Have you implemented it on fingerprint scanners? Have you got to that point yet?
No. So this is actually a very small prototyping stage. And also one of the problem which needs to be addressed right now is that if, let's say, the quality of fingerprint is too poor, then these are not even registered by the fingerprint image. So my research starts if I have a fingerprint in the first place. But what if the fingerprint is not registered? So before this problem is finalized, I don't think the final implementation into the scanner level will be done. So this is one of the interesting thread which needs to be investigated.
Very cool. Well done.
Thank you for the answer. Do we have one more question? No. Thank you so much for the answers. We go through them. Our next presenter is also from India. Rucha Balachandra Yoshi, please, 12 minutes, stage is yours.
Hello everyone. I am Rucha Balachandra Joshi from National Institute of Science Education and Research, Bhubaneswar, India. I'm a PhD student here. So here I have an interesting question. Can we predict the power failures using graph neural networks? So to start with, the critical infrastructure, here are some examples like agriculture, economy, electricity, etc. are considered as the critical infrastructure of any country. So there is really a need to protect the critical infrastructure against any threats that are possible to the infrastructure. So when we talk about electricity, right now we are in the process of slowly in the process of upgrading to the smart grid. So as you can see from the figure, the smart grid involves the usage of smart homes, smart energy meters in the homes, some power generation plants, the use of renewable energy efficient resources. So these are some of the things involved in the smart grids. So if we see the historical data that we have, I got this from Wikipedia, but in the BRICS countries, as you can see here, there has been the power outage earlier in various years as listed here. And the major concern is that the millions of people are affected due to the power outages. So there is a risk to the cyber physical system of smart grids, and there are various reasons for disconnection of power, like the ones which are listed here, like failure to meet the power demand during peak hours, some cyber attacks on the grids, or natural disasters like cyclones, lightning. The place where I'm studying is very much prone to cyclones. So here people suffer from power failures for days during the cyclones. Then we have power stealing. And when we know all these reasons for power disconnection, there is really a need to protect the system against the vulnerabilities. So the objective of my research is to design the machine learning algorithm that can improve the speed and accuracy in prediction of upcoming power failures. So if we have the if we know the power failures beforehand, then we can take the preventive measures to avoid the power failure in the smart grid. So the network of smart grid is multi-layered. So what we try to do is we try to model the smart grids as graphs. Here the participants, as we had seen in earlier slide, the participants are represented as nodes, and the relationships that they share are represented using the edges of the graph. And there are two layers of the smart grids. One is the physical layer, that is the actual electricity transmission layer, and the other one is the data communication layer. The data communication layer is used by smart grid for the communication among the devices that are participating in the smart grid. And here another additional thing to this layers could be the network layer of the social networking. When we have these three layers, it adds to the complexity of the network or the graph of the smart grid. That makes it a multi-layered graph. And of course, this, as we are all aware, this is spatio-temporal data, because the spatial information is also important, as well as the since the consumption and the electricity production varies over time, we also want to use the temporal aspect of this particular data. So what are graph neural networks? It's relatively a new concept, where here when we are given a graph, we want to incorporate the individual characteristics of the nodes as well as the overall characteristics of the graph. So here what we need to do is we want to preserve the individual information, which is the features of the nodes, and overall information, that is the structure of the graph. And also we want to represent this data in lower dimensions, as the data is so huge that it's really due to space constraints, we really need to transform this into lower dimensions. So there are various ways in which the graph neural networks models are proposed earlier. So here is an example that I can present here, which is buildings classification by Yan et al. This architecture is proposed by them. So what really happens here is we are given a graph. Here, this is for buildings classification. So the nodes are the buildings, you can say. And what we do is here the convolution operation is performed. So it's as we know, the convolutional neural network they work for something that is in, let's say, structure in format of array or two-dimensional or in matrix format, you can say, you can represent them somehow. But the problem with graph is that you cannot apply such kind of filters directly on the graphs. So what we do here particularly is that the graph is transformed into the Fourier domain. The kernel, that convolutional kernel to be applied to the graph, is also converted into the Fourier domain, and the operation is performed, convolution operation is performed in the Fourier space, and then we apply the inverse Fourier transform and get back the feature maps for this particular in the next layer, and then we apply some nonlinearity and then pooling operation and so on. So basically this is for building classification, and this type of data does not incorporate the or this does not have the temporal aspect of that. Whereas here is another example, which is forecasting the network traffic. As you can see from the picture, this is for wide area network. This is the wide area network topology, and this is the traffic in each of the in the different participants in the time series. So what we want is we want to have the correlation among both the structure as well as the time series data. Then here is another architecture proposed by Malik et al. And then the traffic forecasting is done. This helps us to reduce congestion. If we can see that, if we can predict or forecast the traffic at a particular line, then it's possible to take some preventive measures and take some preventive measures and then divert the traffic, you can say. So some challenges, this work is in, it's very much infancy, and the real challenges right now with this is getting the data, because smart grids is not something that is already implemented everywhere. It's in the process of implementation, and also getting the data is really difficult. Secondly, when we have the graphs, or even if we represent the graphs, represent the grid in form of graphs, preservation of relationships among the participants in lower dimensional space is a task, because you are definitely representing it in a lower dimensional space, and they it's not always, some information will be lost, but we want to try to preserve the relationships as much as possible. Then the electric grid or the smart grid definitely works on some physics principles, electric principles, and the data also should incorporate this physics involved in the functioning of smart grid in order to predict the future power failures. And here is another challenge, that is the working of the graph neural networks for multi-layer graphs. This is because the graph neural networks that are currently proposed already, the architectures are majorly for single layered graphs. So it's one of the challenge to get the graphs for graph neural networks for multi-layered graphs. That's all for today's presentation. If you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. We do have a question. Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a question from Inger Fabrice Ratelli. Please.
Hi there.
Hi.
Very interesting topic. Yeah, in South Africa we have not power failures, but they regularly cut off our electricity. We have a schedule for it. It's yeah. Maybe some of you guys also have that, but it's quite bad here due to load. We can't handle the load. Yeah. So it's very interesting your presentation and very relevant. I want to ask you about the smart grid.
Yeah.
How much of it is implemented? So are these smart devices, have they been rolled out, or is it still something quite new?
No, this is really something that is really in its infancy. It's not yet applied countrywide in India. In some places we do have it. It's in they're just starting with that.
Okay, all right. Sounds very cool. I think this is the way. Yeah, if you can know where the load will be, you can already optimize it before you need to cut. Yeah.
Yes.
Sounds excellent.
Thank you so much for the question.
Well done.
Do we have any other questions for this presentation? No. Thank you so much for the answers. We go further. Our next presentation is from China. Changzhen Zhao. Please, 12 minutes, stage is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here to share with you some of my previous researches. My name is Zhao Changchen from Zhejiang University of Technology, Hangzhou, China. And the title of my presentation is Spatial Temporal CNN and its Application to Heart Rate Measurements. My presentation consists of the following three parts. The first part is a brief introduction to the spatial and temporal convolutional CNN. The second part is spatial temporal CNN architecture. The third part is application to non-contact heart rate measurement. Now let's go to the first part. Ordinarily, convolution is performed in image space, for example, in the task of image classification, object detection, and tracking. 2D convolutional neural networks are proposed to learn spatial features within an image. Problems arise when dealing with video data in which temporal correlation between frames needs to be considered. A model needs to be proposed to jointly learn both spatial and temporal features simultaneously. Spatial temporal CNN is proposed to address the above issue. And achieve the great success. It is mainly used in video processing areas such as action recognition, video classification, remote PPG, etc. Prior to the spatial temporal CNN models are proposed, the video processing techniques can be categorized into two major groups. Traditional approaches follows the pipeline of local feature extraction, global feature combination, and classification by a classifier. Another group is 2D CNN-based approaches, which first employs a 2D convolution to extract features of each frame. Features are then combined along the temporal dimension. A problem is that each frame of the video is treated as a static image, and the temporal propagation is proposed separately. Spatial temporal CNN is proposed to combine the interframe and the intraframe information in a joint model. And achieved amazing results since it was proposed. The second part, I will introduce some popular, widely used spatial temporal CNN architectures. There are two main streams of STCN architectures, 3D based and RNN based. Typical 3D based 3D CNN include C3D, P3D, I3D, R2+1D, and C3D is really a success since it was proposed. Its variations also showed superior performance. RNN-based frameworks such as long short-term memory and convolutional LSTM are widely used and to cope with the time-dependent data. C3D is also called a 3D convolutional neural network, which was first proposed in 2015. It is a generalization of 2D CNN. C3D extends the 2D CNN operation to temporal dimension. As can be seen in the figure, the output of 2D convolution is one feature map with only contains height and width, while the output of 3D convolution is a cube, which contains time dimension in addition to the height and width. The convolutional kernel captures intraframe and interframe information simultaneously. However, C3D suffers from high computational load, especially when the architecture is steep. Therefore, various alternative models are proposed, for example, P3D, which stands for pseudo 3D. The main idea is to decompose 3D convolution into 2D space dimension, 2D space convolution, and 1D time convolution. R2+1D was proposed in 2018. It does not use bottleneck architecture, but use the most primitive ResNet architecture. Another type is the LSTM. LSTM is a special RNN that deal with long-term dependencies. Similar to RNN, LSTM also has a chain structure, but its repeating unit is different. It has 3 gates: the forget gate, input gate, and the output gate. LSTM is good at processing time series, but if the data is 3-dimensional graphics such as video data, it is difficult for ordinary LSTM to capture the spatial temporal feature. Therefore, convolution operation is added. Therefore, we got conv LSTM. By looking at the equation at the right, we can find that its fully connected operation is replaced by convolutional operation. In the third part, I will introduce some models that actually apply ST-CNN to the non-contact heart rate measurement. First, I want to introduce the RPPG, the remote photoplethysmography. Perhaps everyone are not familiar with RPPG, but you must be familiar with PPG, which is like a fingertip device to measure our heart rate. RPPG is a non-contact measurement of one's heart rate using a digital camera. Similar to our PPG, RPPG detects the subtle blood volume changes beneath the skin. Because of its non-contact nature, it has a wide range of applications such as incubator monitoring, fitness exercise, face anti-spoofing, sleep monitoring, etc. In recent years, it has attracted more and more researchers throughout the world. Today, I'm going to introduce 4 models. The first 3 models is proposed by other researchers, and the last is proposed by our team. The first is the deep RPPG. It mainly uses the 3D convolution and the 2+1D convolution. The architecture is shown below. The second model is called conv LSTM, which is proposed in 2019. One of its features is, One of its features is that the pooling layer is moved to the mass branch. Compared with LSTM, conv LSTM reduces the number of parameters and preserves the spatial information. The third model is called FaceNet, which is also proposed in 2019. It tested 2 kinds of 3D convolution. The first is the 3D CNN, which is also called the C3D, and the second is LSTM. Experimental results show that the LSTM is able to improve the performance, but not so effective as 3D CNN for long-term temporal context aggregation. The last model is called the NVHR-net, which is proposed in 2019 by our team. We use a multi-view convolution. Given an 3D input image, spatial information is extracted from HW view, which is all the time information is extracted from HT and WT view, respectively. Then the features are fused together to get the final RPPG signal. The architecture is shown in this figure. Given an input image data, it first goes through 2 ordinary 2D convolutional layer and then separated into 3 different paths. Each path performs 2D convolutional CNN operation in different viewpoint, HW, HT, WT respectively, and then the features are combined to output the final signal. We tested the proposed algorithm on 2 datasets. The first is the pure dataset and second is self-RPPG. The pure dataset is publicly available and the self-RPPG is collected by ourselves. And the results show that the proposed algorithm outperforms other compared algorithm. This is a visualization of our output. Pulse signal waveform estimated by different networks compared with ground truth PPG. We also tested the influence of the window length T. We plot the SNR and MAE as a function of window length. The results show that as the window length T increases, the performance gets better. We also test the proposed algorithm at the generalization ability of the proposed algorithm. The first figure shows we train the model on self-RPPG and test on pure. The second figure, in the second figure, we train the model on pure and test on self-RPPG, and the performance, the experimental results also show that our proposed method outperforms the compared methods. In conclusion, we propose NVHRNet for RPPG pose extraction from videos. The results demonstrate the effectiveness of our proposed model. The estimated signal of NVHRNet has little noise and low variant trends, good generalization ability, and equal computational cost to single-view 2D convolutional neural networks. Okay, that's all for today's for my presentation. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. Do we have questions? Please, Dr. Nandianu.
Yeah, thank you for these wonderful presentations. And so I just wanted to ask one question. So the model that you have developed using 3D CNN model for heart rate detections, so is it for the normal people, or if the person is having some disorder or kind of abnormalities, or so will your model will be so robust to identify these heart rate the way that you are doing for these general, I mean, the normal people?
Okay, we just use a single digital camera. The device is not very specific, just the consumer level camera is okay. And we first detect the face area, and the ROI is the skin area, and we extract the subtle variation beneath under the skin area.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you for the answers. We go further, and our last presentation for today is from South Africa. Please, Inger Fabrice Ratelli, 12 minutes. Stage is yours.
Thank you. Apologies, there's a helicopter. All right. So I'm going to talk about some spatial statistics. One project that I've worked on to develop a spatial sampling scheme for rabies vaccination in some rural villages in Tanzania. This is work with my co-authors. Haley Reynolds was a master's student. Alfred Stein is a professor in the Netherlands, and Theodore Lutz is a colleague of mine as well. We just received news last week that this work was received for publication in the journal Environmental and Ecological Statistics, so we're quite happy about that. There we go. So just a quick background on my research fields and what I work on to set the scene. So I'm a trained applied mathematician, specifically in image processing. I then I majored in applied maths and statistics, and I've now sort of merging spatial statistics with image processing, also with machine learning and deep learning in that sphere as well. Currently, I have these following projects that I list there. I'm working on a complexity measure for big spatial data, specifically in images. The image processing work that I've developed on multi-scale image filters. Also got some papers in process and published on measuring homogeneity of spatial data. Also work with a criminologist in our geography department for modeling spatially modeling of crimes. Together with spatial linear network processes. So we're looking at crimes on roads. So we model both of those aspects in a spatial way. Also some image processing on informal road detection in remote sensing, those type of roads that are not built by the government, that are built by convenience, which are the type of things that will be present a lot in our countries. Also currently from this year, some spatial COVID modeling, specifically focusing on the uncertainty in developing countries. There's a lot more spatially that goes on in developing countries due to our mobility and our or maybe one of the hosts let me know if I should continue. Oh, they're setting up. Okay. Okay. Yeah, some spatial COVID modeling.
Dear participants, please be patient. We have a technical problem. Please wait for about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, we can proceed.
Thank you. So, and the last one is some spatial modeling of rural rabies vaccination, which I will talk about today. But if you're interested in any of these other projects, you're very welcome to get in contact with me. I'm very nerdy about all of this, so super keen. Okay. So the first thing, just a quick brief slide on geospatial data in general. So there's been a huge increase in spatial statistics and spatial analysis because geospatial data acquisition is now so easy. We all have smart devices. In the past, you'd have to have a very expensive, complicated device to collect such data. Now it's just collected every day. And this truly is a big data problem. So you have big data and then you have spatial big data. And big data, spatial big data is even a bigger problem because of the dependence between data. Usually when you have big data, we always have this inherent assumption of independence, or you at least try and take it into account. But spatial data is always dependent. That is its definition. So there's dependence in space as well as time. Even if you ignore the temporal aspect, even the spatial aspect becomes huge. And this is because a lot of the analysis that we do has to compare all the pairs of points, because we're looking at how do they compare in relation to each other. So if you have n observations, you have n squared comparisons to get. So if n is very large, this is enormous. And big data research evolves and matures. There's a lot of opportunities for spatial big data research. This paper is a really nice paper which covers it. It's like a review paper, and they really talk about what are the next problems in spatial big data that we can play a part in, and not even just on the spatial statistics side of it, but the computational side and the way we need to program, the way we need to store spatial data and that sort of thing. So if you have any interested in this direction, this is a very nice paper to read through. All right, so the project I'm going to show you today is about rabies, specifically in a rural third world setting. So very much a place like Tanzania. So we have a very nice data set. It's a census data set. So this research, I'll show you the link on the next page where it comes from. They've gone out into these villages in Tanzania, and they've gone and recorded every single dog or cat they can find at little huts. Rabies is endemic to these districts, so it's a real problem. And importantly, maybe most of us will know that here, but if you are bitten and you are not treated immediately, you will almost in 100% of cases die. It's incredibly deadly. The World Health Organization declares that in order to have it die out in a community, you need to vaccinate 70% of the animals there. Of course, 70% is quite large, especially when you're going to go into rural areas like Tanzania. And there's this reference here indicates us quite clearly that there's many logistical and administrative challenges with this. There's a whole report on it here as well, also at the World Health Organization. So currently, and the approaches that those references refer to, the veterinarian or whoever's vaccinating the animals will wait in the middle of a village and hope that people will bring their animals in to be vaccinated. Of course, these type of villages don't know where the animals are. They're not kept in a locked yard. They're roaming free. You don't know how many there are. These are not pets in the sense of my bed, my dog sleeps on my bed. They're roaming free. And did everyone receive the communication, and did they take it seriously? Do they understand how serious rabies is? So this does not work. So we proposed a separate, an alternative approach, really taking into account spatial statistics and some machine learning techniques. So if you've got a village, and I'll show you some pictures just now, we develop an optimal road network. So the way the vaccination or driver should drive through there, he would then stop at houses, and then at each house, which we select in a certain way, he walks among the houses, whichever animals he finds, he vaccinates them, and he moves on. Right, and we design this network so that the walking route is optimal, because that is the most taxing on the vaccinator. Driving we deem as much quicker than walking, so this takes priority. And the way we determine these stopping points is with a kernel density estimation heat map, a spatial kernel density map. And then in this research, we compare sampling of the houses to get to the 70%. What is the best way to choose the houses? So that you don't have to go to every house, but you go to the houses to get 70% in the most optimal way in terms of how far the vaccinator has to walk. And we compare this, we introduce some spatial sampling techniques to get the 70% and some traditional ones to show what happens with those and which ones are better. So we want 70% to get herd immunity. We take into account the spatial nature because it's there, and there's dependency obviously between where houses are located. We minimize the distance walked by the veterinarian rather than the money spent, for example, on petrol, because that's much more minimal than the veterinarian's time to walk. Obviously, this is rural areas, so he has to walk at some point. You can't drive everywhere. So that's not something that's unavoidable. And just for simplicity, we assume that the time to vaccinate an animal is deterministic, and we don't take that into account in calculating the cost. We also assume that there's one animal at every house just for simplicity. On average, there's actually, in our data set, 2.5 at every house. So it perfectly covers the 70% at an absolute minimum. All right. So first thing is, so this is what one of our data set looks like. So this is a village Bukanchirai in Tanzania, one of the villages we did this, tested this on. So it's very large. So you need to drive. You can't walk there. Amongst there in one go. And to add to that, if you waited here in the middle of the village as a vaccinator, there's no way that people are going to walk from miles away to bring their dog to be vaccinated. That's the whole day gone. So that's clearly why that technique didn't work. Right. In terms of spatial statistics, we use a convex hull window. That's just simply because it affects the kernel density estimation. If you did a kernel density estimation on the full square here, you get a slightly different result. So we did a kernel convex hull, which I'll show you on the next page. And then the house locations are located with denoted with these X's. I'm not going to go too much into the mathematics because that will just be overload. All right. In terms of the kernel density estimation, we select our stopping points, and that's where the high densities are. So he drives and he stops at a point where we expect many houses. So we're optimizing. Don't go to a little location where there's only a few houses. Stop here where you know when you get out you can walk quickly to many places and vaccinate many animals. And then importantly, if the stopping point, which is these lambda MIs, are determined and they don't sit on a road, because he can only drive on a road, we just take the nearest point on the road from that point, and those are these lambda MI adjacencies. We then modeled the road as a graph, a weighted graph, in terms of where the weights are the number of houses at the destination vertex. So if you're driving and you have to decide which way you want to go, you will go the route which has more destination houses close by. So around each node, which are these lambdas of the graph, we determine within a decent distance, which we set at 200 meters. We decided that the vaccinator shouldn't walk more than 200 meters radius. And then that's how many houses are at that destination node. And then we weight the edges of the graph with those. Okay. And they're bidirectional. So you can go both ways. So obviously you have a different weight in each direction, every edge. This graph network, so how we should drive, so ignoring when he gets to the houses, just how we should drive to get to the most houses, we maximize. So you get a unique subgraph which is called a minimum spanning tree, and we use Prim's minimization algorithm to find this. All right, then we looked at some various sampling schemes, which I'm not going to go and list them all and tell you what each of them did, but we chose 3 traditional, like simple random sampling, very ones you know of. Those are non-spatial, and 5 different spatial techniques. So spatial sampling means that we take into account that we're on a spatial window, and you don't just randomly list all your items and sample them. You sample them with knowledge of where they are in space. Okay, and in all cases, we aim for the minimum 70% so that we can achieve the vaccination rate. Okay, there are the names of them. So simple random, stratified, systematic sampling, and then in spatial, uniform, stratified, systematic, and the systematic was on 3 different grids. So then we have 8 different sampling schemes. So the strata here are the stopping points, where we tell the driver to stop, and the houses within that radius, that 200-meter radius. And then at each of those stopping points, we sample houses. So you won't necessarily go to all of them, depending on the sampling scheme. Okay, so let me show you how this worked. So this is that same village you saw before. So this is a convex window, right? So it's not the whole square or rectangular window, because there were no houses there. And there's probably a reason they're not living there. So we take our convex window, and then we performed a kernel density estimation there. And then the parts we took the maximum values on there to get those little lambda, the stopping points. So you get something like this. So the red there is your road network, which we had to go and manually digitize because it does not exist. Hence, I have another project on the side, which is developing some automatic methods to extract roads like this. These are not roads that are on Google Maps or anything like that. The blue are the points that were determined from this kernel density estimation. So the points where there's maximum density, and obviously we chose a select number of them. We had a cutoff on that. The black points are the houses. So just an example of how it becomes a graph. So if this is a zoom in of that one, there's obviously a route from this blue to there. So we put an edge. So it's obviously not an edge. We don't put another node there. right? So we only put the edges between the blue, the stopping points. Okay, so this is an example of an extracted minimum spanning tree using Prim's algorithm. And in fact, in this one, the number of houses were 614. So I say attainable because we're only counting the houses that are within 200 meters of a stopping point. So we do exclude those ones that are just simply too far to get to from a road network and in terms of walking. But we still get 88% of the population when we do that. So it's very decent. And remember, we need to get to 70%. In terms of at each stopping point, so this, for example, is a stopping point, say there are 5 houses around it. We then also create a graph structure with all the distances, so every pair of distances between all of those points, and this is where you get big data popping in. And then again, we minimize, so he's going to stop here. He then has to walk. He has to get out of his car and walk, and we again use Prim's algorithm to find the minimum route to visit all the nodes. So that's how we should walk. To visit all of them. At each house, you then vaccinate. Assuming that all 5 of these were the ones included in the sample. So it could be that there were others, but these 5 are the ones that were included in the sample. All right, so we did this, and then to investigate our methods, we repeated each of the 8 sampling techniques 1,000 times, and we could then get a distribution of the cost. Bear in mind here, the cost is the walking distance of the vaccinator, because that is the most taxing, and in terms of time of the vaccinator, and ultimately money, because he has to be paid a salary. And you can see, so the first 3 schemes here are the traditional ones, and the following 5 are the spatial ones. And you can see that the spatial ones are definitely falling more on the lower side. Okay, these are in kilometers, unfortunately, because these villages are very large. So just a summary of what we saw there. The lowest cost we saw in general, because we didn't only apply it on one village, we applied it on multiple villages, was the systematic regular spatial scheme, which has an average walking distance of 26.11. The stratified spatial was the next lowest, so again a spatial one of 26.28. And the uniform spatial scheme had a larger average than the non-spatial scheme. So this was a funny one that you shouldn't use. So we definitely showed that spatial definitely has advantages and optimizes better. Very important for these distributions, the variation was incredibly low. The average standard deviation was 1 kilometer, meaning that you won't get a random chance that it varies a lot from this 26.11, which is also very good. So if you're going to put it on an app for a vaccinator to use, you can run it one time and trust that that will be a decent approach. Okay, so just some conclusions based on this. We've applied this specifically to vaccinating animals for rabies, but obviously it could apply to other geographical areas. Maybe we want to vaccinate against COVID when we have a vaccine, something like that. You could also apply to larger villages. Of course, the larger the village, the more that average distance becomes, the walking distance. But then you could split it. Logically, a vaccinator would anyway split them into smaller areas and attack them each separately. We did want to implement that, but it's quite computationally expensive, and we were just running it on a little normal laptop at that stage. There are also other much fancier spatial sampling schemes. So we just use normal traditional schemes, nothing fancy ones, the very simplest that are built into SPATStat and R. And we felt that's actually okay, because if you want to explain to someone in the field to go and do this, if you're going to go use simulated annealing or something really complicated, that's going to be too much for them. And of course, we would like to implement this on an app or something, and then that becomes too much. So, and with the simple sampling, spatial sampling, we achieved very good results. Then there was a paper as well, which showed that in fact, you don't need to get the 70% every day of the year. If you get 59% at any given time, it allows you to do multiple trips over a year, meaning that 26.1 kilometers doesn't have to be done in a single day or a single week. It could be, over 4 times in the year type of thing. And another thing we didn't consider is the geography of the land, right? We know that the driving is not necessarily an issue, but when the vaccinator gets out and he has to walk, and I tell him he has to walk that direction and there's a hill, he's not going to walk there and he's going to walk around. So we didn't take that into account. Since we finished this work, we actually got DEM data for the area, and I have another student who's developing sort of picking out where the hills are and what is not viable for walking, and that sort of algorithm. So that could also be future work. Yes, and that's me. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for the impressive presentation. We have a time for the couple of questions, please. Do we have? Denis Panovarev, please.
Yes, I have one. Thanks for a nice presentation. Well, the root optimization problem that we were talking about is obviously a computational hard problem related to NE hard problems, right?
Yes.
And then you have, which means that if you have large data, it might be computation expensive, right? And
yes.
That's why, yeah, actually I have just some comments. So well, obviously geospatial data used to be large data, and you want to compress it somehow while preserving some properties which are essential for prediction, for instance, for prediction of or computation of an optimal. I just wanted to mention that there are data compression approaches which try to find a kernel in your problem, which gives the same solution as the solution to a problem for the original data.
Okay.
So I can, well, maybe you know about this kind of studies, but I can point you to that in case you're
that's not. Yeah, I haven't looked into it in much detail because I'm more on the statistics side, not the computational side. But it's very important, so I'd love to get those. That'll be lovely if you could send it through. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We have no questions. Dear colleagues, thanks a lot for your true titanic patience. Hope you are not even a bit tired as opposed to me. We'll proceed tomorrow according to the schedule of the forum. So thanks again and have a goodbye.